I'll call the meeting to order. Lord, Joe, can you please call the roll? Mayor Pro Tem Ocasio.
Here.
Mayor Brown.
Present.
Councilmember Fellows.
Present.
Councilmember Tucson.
Present.
Councilmember Simmons.
Here.
Councilmember McLean is here on Zoom, but absent person. Councilmember King. I'm gonna go right now. Councilmember King. Present. Thank you. We have a board. Thank you. All right. We'll give Councilmember King a sit.
See, pal.
I entertain a motion for agenda approval.
So move. I'll support. Oh.
It's moved by Councilmember Simmons and
Yeah.
Little Carson. Any updates or changes to the agenda? All in favor of the agenda as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We are now at our opportunity for public comment. All right, so today's our first day with the new. Rules of the field. It's okay. No one just signed. No one has signed up, okay. So we'll have 60 minutes. Each member of the audience will have 3 minutes to address the council. There are no names signed up on the list, but we will call hands from the audience and then we will go to Zoom. All right, who would like to address council?
Is it from the floor?
You can come here.
Okay, great. These are on the paper, because I don't want to miss it.
Good evening.
Oh, 3 minutes, okay, I'll be done before. My name's Lee Tucson, I live in the city of Ypsilanti, and I ain't ready to move. I will forever support Chief Anderson as the chief of police in the city of Ypsilanti, as he tried to bring respect and trust back into the Ypsilanti Police Department. Council, I have been a lot of places and I have done a lot of things, and I've seen a lot of things. But I have never seen so many disrespectful white folks that comes to these council meetings, not just disrespecting the audience, but disrespecting you as council. I believe if you really wanted to, you could stop this behavior by these disrespectful white folk, snapping a finger, knocking on columns, beating drums, knocking on windows, yelling obscenities, pushing police officers who try to close council doors. Imagine that. And listen, I want y'all to imagine if this was black folks with the right behavior, you would be ready and willing to call the National Guards to disperse them. Even if you had to turn water hoses and dogs loose on them like they did in Birmingham, Alabama. Correct it if you will. Now, council, I wanna tell you all have no answers for all these folks that come down to council meeting telling you all about what happened with the sheriff's department. You have no answers for them. All those answers should come from Alicia Dyer, because as I said earlier, that's her baby. Now, watch. All 4 of those cops that killed that young man up on Prospect, the prosecutor in Washington County should do the same thing as the prosecutors and the police administration did in Memphis, Tennessee, when the black cops killed that young black man. Prosecute him, send him to prison. But you know what? You ain't got to worry about Ellie Savage doing that. He's not going to do it. You know why he's not going to do it? Because it's county folks, and he will recuse himself before he do that, as he has done in the past. He recuses himself. We have a witness tampering case that he recused himself from, and it's been said in the district attorney's office for the last 3 years. Hey, y'all, straighten this out. Straighten it out. Don't let these folks come down here disrespecting y'all, because that's exactly what they're doing. I don't care who it is, every one of you, when they disrespected, you should stand up. Every one of you should stand up and have something to say about the disrespect that they're showing to you all and the audience. But only a few say anything. It's upon all of you to do the right thing.
Thank you, your time is up.
Okay.
Thank.
Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to address council?
Why don't you just call me up?
You know, I don't
How
call
about
you
you
out.
come on down here on an odd night if you
You're fine. You're fine. Good evening.
Good evening. The other night when I said, let's dwell in shame before we move on to accountability, I didn't think you'd be dwelling this long. Because I think the inaction the other night was shameful. I don't think we need any more time or any more information to ask that the charges be dropped. There is full transparency about the charges. I saw them myself, they're public information. There's nothing else needed there. I thought long and hard myself about disassociating with SWAT and whether we have the capacity to do that or not. And I think we absolutely do. And last night I spoke at the county commission to urge them to immediately look at their full inventory of militarized police equipment and see what we can begin divesting from. On my way over here, I got my first look at the video of the person who was killed on Prospect Street. And I know there's a lot of jockeying about responsibility for all of this and accountability, but regardless of the individuals, the jurisdiction, as I see it, you all, as you have served, have created fertile ground for these incidents to happen by not getting care-based safety off the ground in the city sooner, by not implementing shelter. You are creating fertile ground, and so you have to be accountable. There is plenty of blame to go around, and there's plenty of change that needs to happen everywhere at every level. If we can afford to fund 10 cop positions that we didn't have last year, we could have afforded to prioritize meaningful public health and safety. I am tired of coming here to ask for the same things. I have been coming here for over a year, fairly consistently. My children are with a babysitter right now so that I can speak to you in person. I am tired of hearing that you haven't heard it enough, that our words are not impactful enough. I am tired of the inaction. I expect more from you. And as far as the respect goes, I can respect you as human beings, but in the context of your office, just as I can respect our police officers as human beings, but in the context of their position, there is a loss of respect there. After these incidents, after I was assaulted by another YPD officer trying to intervene in them tackling a 77-year-old man to the ground last week, after all this, amidst all this, every time I walk away from these incidents, less fearful of our police and less respectful of our police. And I think about our unhoused neighbors who have many more police contacts and the amount of danger that these sort of police contacts increase among everyone. It's not how we need to be handling our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience on Zoom?
Have one on Zoom. Caduce.
Good evening.
Good evening, Council. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. For this meeting, I think there are two things I would suggest. The first is I would be interested in more accessible visualizations of the budget. We often hear from department chairs going through granular accounting of their needs, which I think is appropriate for a city council audience. But members of the public usually have somewhat different questions regarding the budget. I would, for example, wonder how do the total budgets of each department compare to one another? How much of the budget from sources outside of the police department goes to things that would be considered social services like housing assistance or mental health support? So if the city could help us get visualizations like this, I think the public would really appreciate it. Second, please prioritize raising city council salaries. We saw the budget conversation last year. Everyone knows cost of living has gone up since then by about 3%. Your salaries should go up at least that amount this year. If you account for all the years that council has not received a cost of living adjustment to their salaries, the growth should be much more. Please do not let this be a discussion item this budget season. Just work it out with the finance director and lock in an inflation adjustment. Regarding the meeting on Tuesday, I mostly have some questions. The first, I'm wondering why we didn't hear from the police and fire chiefs. We often see that when there's a case that has a lot of public interest, police chiefs even hold press conferences where they disclose information that can be shared even if an investigation is ongoing. I was surprised that our police and fire chiefs did not communicate with us, at least in public comment. Second, this could be due to liability concerns. This brings me to my second question. Liability concerns are absolutely valid, but they have to be weighed against public desires for transparency. I'd like to note that the city issued a statement on Facebook saying initially that YPD had called on Metro SWAT, I believe, but then this post was edited with acknowledgement that they had called on crisis negotiation team first. So do edited statements on social media not pose a liability risk? Perhaps City Council can help us get answers to these questions. Lastly, to be honest, I'd like to say more about the situation because there's a lot of confusing stuff about it. But the relatively guarded nature of most of City Council has left me feeling a bit scared to say too much lest I be targeted for some reason. That's just the feeling it has left for me. It may be different for different people, but I at least wanted to share that I am scared just so you know it's a consequence, likely unintended, of the way things were left so tentative on Tuesday. I also would like to say thank you for the rule change for public comments. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all I have on the- okay, well, with that, we will close public comment and hand it over to Dr. Muna, our city manager. Do you have anything first?
No.
Okay.
Good evening, council.
Good evening.
Good to be back with you again this evening, and I will try to be expedient with the process. We've done a lot of good preliminary work, and this evening we're going to wrap up the process of prioritization. Okay, so on Tuesday, City Council engaged in a strategic prioritization process in which you espoused your priorities. We then had you rank those priorities. I was able to distill that data. I'll show you how that came out in just a sec. Once we discuss the consensus, we'll have the departments present their goals to you, so you get to see what the departments have been working on. I met with the directors yesterday in context of your prioritization. We talked about the initiatives that you found important, and we want to make sure that they incorporated their work efforts to be aligned with those goals. So we'll see how close we were able to get this evening. This next slide is the actual consensus slide. And so these were the themes that came out, and if you recall, you voted on those themes. Sorry. You voted on those themes. You gave 6 themes high priority, 6 themes moderate priority, and the rest you did. I noted them as having the low priority. I assigned numbers to each of those votes and then calculated the consensus for that. You can see that the strongest momentum goes to Water Street, public infrastructure, roads, walks, bridges, public spaces, including parks and restrooms, youth engagement and development, unarmed response strategy. That has raised itself up to the top priority compared to last year in terms of consensus, and shelter and housing. So those were they represent significant agreement. Those areas represent significant agreement, meaning that most of the council members indicated that this was either a high or moderate important priority. You can see the remainder of priorities there. The ones listed in emerging agreement are certainly areas of opportunity. And then the priorities that represent opportunity after shared wins are elements that can be worked on. There's less agreement with that. But as council progresses and accomplishes some of the other priorities, I would anticipate that these would raise up closer to the top, much like we saw some from last year raising up to the top this year. Okay, so now we can explore the departmental goals in the context of council's priorities. Each department will present their goals, and as we go through the goals, the council priorities that are thematic from this list are actually noted in blue. I've supplied prioritization packets to you, and so as each department head is going through their goals, if you could just follow along and then rank your priorities again at the granular level, and then an overall level of agreement of that department's stated goals. Any questions before we proceed?
You have a minute to let technology catch up.
I don't think it's gonna work, it's not, mine won't open.
I'm not gonna be able to see whatever.
A long time for mine too, that's why I don't know.
Right.
what else you got.
My email won't even.
And I'm not sure I understand this. On here, we have. Well, there's like 4 things I think that are pulled from this list. That's 1 to 5, but the other goal, we would just write in.
If there's a goal that you find in that department, you want them to put attention toward, that's a space to capture that.
And then the most.
That's an overall support for that department. That's your overall agreement of that department state.
And so then we're trying to rank whether what their goals match one of these.
So, for example, with the city manager is going to be pursuing or presenting priorities, or presenting goals in 4 areas: shelter, response team, staffing, and infrastructure. Of those 4, which one is most important to you? Which is second most important?
Oh, I see, they're not the same on each one.
Correct.
Okay.
It's available electronically for Councilmember McLean.
Yeah, it's on the Zoom feed.
Oh,
So
But
we
this-
also, oh, that now.
Yeah.
email that to you.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully we can get it.
Hopefully you know the word, man.
Oh, that's right.
Raise this up. These-
Dr. Miller, since
Few minutes to
many of us can't open this in email, can you read the secondary goals out? So we can hear them?
All of the goals that the directors are gonna present are listed on each page.
No, I meant on your presentation that we can't.
Oh,
open.
I see, yes, yeah.
Emerging in the.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yes. Let me go back to the slides.
I think it's browser.
I don't know, I always won't open it all, make it an email.
Yeah.
Both Andrew and I were having trouble as well.
Okay, maybe it's out. I'm not sure this one. I had trouble when I was on YouTube, so.
Okay.
How about the department heads? Are your emails working?
Right, I always are doing the Teams chat, and y'all already have the information from yesterday. Got it up here.
Did you receive the presentation?
I received it. Right.
You opened it?
I have not opened it that long. But I can try. Mine. But I'm just saying, I can't go in the email.
Yeah, I can't get it.
Oh,
Yeah, I've got.
it's okay. I'm gonna close it down.
It's okay, I'm just, you can keep going, it's fine.
Okay.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, I can't
For
see
the
it.
record, I'll read the themes. So the high priority, the high consensus themes include Water Street, public infrastructure, public spaces, youth engagement and development, unarmed response strategy, and shelter housing. The second tier represents emerging agreement that includes public infrastructure, buildings and lots, Department of Public Works support and waste management, public safety, public health, staffing capacity, personnel training and development, urban forestry service, climate resiliency, and partnerships and economic development. All of those receive moderate consensus. And then the opportunity after shared wins, the lowest consensus was in areas of exploring revenue reform, budget stability, participatory budgeting, clerk election support, fair council compensation, pride beautification, including selling swag, constituent services and social support, and new laws, for example, around pet ownership. Before I introduce the directors, I just wanted to provide a visualization of what I informed on Tuesday. I also spoke about this last year. But effective management consists of essentially four elements, two of which resides at the level of city council, and that is strategy and essentially directing resources. And the other two elements of management reside at the operations level, and that is leading the team members to do the work and then providing a sense of control, oftentimes through budget reconciliation. So as we interface, what our goal is to create an entire holistic prioritization process is to take the strategy that council has outlined and then to discuss the work that the operations teams are engaged in and making sure that those two interface, make sure they match. And so that's what our goal is. All right, with that set up, I'd like to now introduce the city manager for the first set of granular goals.
Good evening, council. So I waited to formulate my budget priorities until following your session. And my specific goals for this term is a shelter, continue to work with regional partners to address a permanent shelter on the eastern side of the county. We've been working with the Washtenaw Shelter Association. And they are in the process. They have a realtor and they are trying to find a location in the eastern side of the county. And I want to build those partnerships with them, the Board of Commissioners, and any other groups in the region. I started having some community meetings in our safety committee. One of the goals that was underlined was a place for people to go. So I think that's important to have a location where people can congregate and, you know, be a part of the community. So I think that's important. My second goal is around an armed response. I've been working with LEAP. They are still waiting on getting the data from the sheriffs for the dispatch. They're pretty close for that. So I hope to start going through that with that team and have a final report before budget season. And also we've been thinking about what are some outside funding sources that we can get that off the ground. Staffing, especially with DPW and police department, we just need people to get through the work. Our DPW is very, very at capacity, if not way under. So I think it's important to address those gaps in our staffing. And then also leveraging funding to address public infrastructure and facilities. As you know, our facilities could use some updating and some needs to better address city undertakings. Also revisit options from the public bathrooms. Last summer, we kind of talked about our different options, but really look into that and have a budget line this year in order to have some type of solutions there. My themes here are shelter, community response team, staffing, and infrastructure.
Okay, any questions of council regarding filling out the priority packet that you have? With those. So. Okay, any questions for City Manager Clement?
And just a question, have council received Tracy's email yet and they're able to pull up the presentation, or is it still kind of
The whole thing, like,
Yeah.
Outlook won't even open.
Okay.
So I can't, it won't, it hasn't come to my phone or anything, so I can't get, something must be up, I think, this.
Here, I will try to send it via text.
You would have to,
Yeah, Teams. Another.
That's how they. It's all of us yesterday. What's that? That's all they linked it to all of us yesterday. Sure.
Yeah, I can send it to you. Talk about that, the prioritization sheet.
Yeah, these,
Yeah, I haven't massive received it.
and we can, I think, give it.
I think it's something with Outlook because even on my phone email, it's not, there's no email there.
Are you on the secret or
Uh,
network or the on?
yeah,
I'm on,
We're on public and it's working.
yeah,
I'm on It's Public.
yeah, oh,
Oh,
well,
no, I'm on private. Okay, so
We don't have access to project.
I do something with that Wi-Fi. That out.
But my phone's not on Wi-Fi and my email's not coming. Like,
Well,
the Outlook app,
I
right?
sent another version to all of council and then we'll text it to you.
Do you
too.
guys like printed versions? Like it's the
I
eighties?
think we're sorting it out. I just sent everyone a link.
Let us know, Councilman. Sure.
Well, I sent it to him too. via email.
It is private. Patrick, I sent the prior presentation to your regular email, the first one.
You should give it a try.
Thank you. Prioritization pack.
Somebody else sends this to the mayor, but everybody else.
Yeah, I just put it into.
I think this is ours, though, it's not me.
yeah, I didn't get to.
I don't know what that.
And I'm lying, I was in my email, I didn't realize, yes. Even now, I didn't get your email.
Did you get the text?
I didn't
No,
get text.
I got your text.
Yeah, can you send that to Nicole and whoever else didn't get it yet?
Even though it was crazy.
Presentation.
So I send the wrong one.
Yeah, that's the one that we got. I got it. I'm gonna send this new one.
Now it's telling me that I can't even get into email, I'm gonna have to call IT.
Yeah, just sent it, this presentation to all of council on Teams.
Thanks for doing this.
They do.
I got that. I want it. Put it on my neighborhood, it's for the business. When you said you send on Teams, like.
It says it,
Pop up in my chat.
I mean, it would be your city emails, but- so it should be there.
Do you want it on your phone or no? I'll just use my phone at this point. Thank you. I don't know what else to get through. This is fine. What? Alright. Yeah, this is fine.
Okay, ready to proceed? City attorney.
Right, so council, as you all know, I'm essentially an outside contractor, so the budget impact that I have is already established under that contract. However, there are some outside pieces to that. Generally, what I do is assist staff and council with things like legislative policy matters, contracts, day-to-day HR needs of the various departments. Importantly, I supervise all internal and external litigation with state matters. We manage the criminal docket in the district court and the civil infraction docket for the Administrative Hearings Bureau. I serve as the city SWAG coordinator and under various corners of the charter and ordinances, I am responsible for investigating discrimination that might be asserted for the benefit of council and the HRC doing their work. So the focus that I have this year with the teams is provision of continued services, digitization, which has been a tall order. 40 some odd years of my predecessor's documents have been quite a chore. It's digitized and a lot of that paper. What I have needed out of my amount, I have been able to obtain and digitize that. And then the other thing we're looking to do, at least in terms of digitization, is try to make our take our next step in the next request software to create a module within it so that MLS FOIA requests are a lot of key events or key situations that frequently source the document requests, such as a certain apartment complex or recent events here in the last few weeks. And so there's an opportunity to post frequently requested documents. That makes it more efficient because that saves the staff of an opportunity to take extra time to fulfill that request. It's already right there. So that's really a functionality expansion that we want to do. That's kind of the next step in that process in terms of continued services goals and here continued network. But in terms of the public safety focus, which I obviously have some responsibility for in my role. We have pending and continued litigation, anticipated litigation. Focus on that is really with these properties in the city that have been neglected in terms of construction, in terms of maintenance. They are not just public nuisances, but they are public nuisances by data. So obviously we have the big ticket case with the apartment complex, but we also have others that are scheduled to be commenced here in the next few weeks to address some other issues. So that's really been the focus of my efforts in terms of litigation, is the focus on how does that impact the safety of our public and parents of our public. We don't want our here. I grew up here. Make sure that other people can do that safely as well.
Moment, rank the priority of the stated goals from city attorney and overall support. And here's the city clerk.
So I thought we had kind of discussed that we didn't need an overview. So I think everyone here kind of understands what I do. So we'll just go into goals. So I basically have operational and communication goals. For my operational goals, I want to continue to work with council to update and codify the council rules of order and the standards and procedures for the boards and commissions. All of your rules are one-offs in resolutions all over the place, and I'm trying to pull them all together so that we can eventually have one codified document that has all of your rules in one place, so we know what they are. And then as you want to change them, we would just change that document, so all your rules will be in the same place. We've been working on updating everything for the boards and commissions. That's a big undertaking, it's a big endeavor, and we're still working through a lot of that. Continuing to evaluate and revise current policies and procedures, enumerating clear instructions and streamlining guides for updated policies and procedures. This is also an ongoing project. I'm hoping to get the clerk's office to the point where if anything happened to any one of us, the office could continue without any interruption. There are so many little things that we do that are governed by 800 different laws and 800 different corrections. And I just am continuing to try to corral all of that together so that we have the best information and are following all of our rules and regulations as we move forward. Sorting through all of the historical documents and organizing what must be retained. That is a newer project that kind of came to us, you know, after we had someone in here looking at the building and we were told that, you know, we had way too many things all over the place. So we have every department has started working on their documents. But kind of the way it works in document retention is everyone's responsible for their own stuff unless they're not, and then the clerk is. So one way or another, all of the documents sort of fall to me. So we have hired the DPW director and I hired 2 part-time temporary staff members to start going through all of those documents. And we were blessed and lucky enough to hire 2 library science students. They're phenomenal. Understanding and grasping all of these old documents, all of the laws, all of the rules, all of, you know, the inner workings that go into these documents. You have to read through a lot of stuff before you can just determine whether you can get rid of it or not. And then we're also working through trying to determine if we don't need it, does it have archival value? And is there somebody who would want it? So leading into that, I really want to create an internship program or / receptionist position. Again, it would be great if they were library science students, because not only are there my documents, but every other department in the city I know has tons and tons and tons of file cabinets and documents that need to be gone through. Whether we stop at Iron Mountain, that has to be gone through, whether it's in our filing cabinets here, determining what we need to keep. And so having someone here on staff part-time who has the understanding and the knowledge and the drive for that would be a benefit to us. And having someone in a receptionist type position would also be a huge benefit to us in so many different ways. You know, we are the first line of defense here. We are the ones that welcome people to the city. We are everyone's first opinion of the city. And we help people a lot in our department. And we have a lot of work that needs to be done every day because it's not just the clerk's office, it's the finance treasury down here as well. And getting all of our work done as we're giving good customer service is really hard. And having, as we have found, the person that, it just kind of worked out nicely that the 2 young ladies that have been working with us didn't have a viable laptop or tablet. And so we just put them right inside our office at that front counter. And it has made such a world of difference. It's been amazing. Just the simple things. My staff can do their work and not look up every 30 seconds when they hear a door. And that lovely person sitting, acting as a receptionist simply says, "Hello, someone will be with you in a minute." And that alerts the rest of the staff. And if it's a simple little thing, they know they can, they can let them through to see the building department, the forms are over here, but then it alerts us so that we can then give them a good customer service that they need. So I just think this would be an absolute godsend for the department and could do so much more for the customer service and for helping our residents. Communication goals. Truly, I believe that the clerk's goals are council's goals. And through all of your goals, there aren't a lot of specific things that I can address, but the way I can address it is to help you get your goals and your information out there. I know that that has been part of the problem, that there has been some complaints from council as well as residents that the dissemination of information isn't always the best, doesn't always get out the way we want it to. And so that's a big part of what I want to do with my communication goals for you. Back to the boards and commissions again. We still need to have better policy and procedure for all of the boards and commissions and their work. I want to work with our communications, well, I've already started working with our communications department to establish a voter outreach program. Voter outreach and education is very important to me. And I think it's integral to the electoral process. How can you, vote if you don't have the knowledge behind it to make the informed decisions? And then the simple things of where do I go to register? Where do I vote? All of the questions that people don't understand. I think voter outreach is the best way to do that. Getting out at the university, at the local events that the city supports or sponsors, and having a table out there where we're visible, where people know this is the clerk's office, this is Ipsy Elections, and you can find all the information that you need here. We can register people to vote. We can get them on our permanent application list or our permanent ballot list, answer their questions, send them to resources. And I think it's also a way to help the community. If I can find a few extra dollars, I think the only way that you get people to come and talk to you at events is if you have something to hand out. And I would like to find, swag that is useful for our community, things that people could really use. So it would kind of be twofold, where we're getting people interested to come and talk to us about elections, but we're also able to, there's some resources. So we've already been working on that. And making the website more accessible, that's huge because it is the law and we will be required to by 2027. As a smaller community, we have a later date. Large communities have to be accessible first. So we'll probably learn from them and follow some of what they're doing as well. And then the last thing is really my goal for council. It's the communicating updates on key initiatives. In ways that disseminate the information, in ways that council wants that information out. We know that there have to be better ways and different ways to get some of this information out. A lot of the things, Councilmember Fellows, that you're doing with the tenants' rights, things like that, right? Like I want to help you figure out how to make it so that all of our residents are getting the information and getting these things and volunteering more, right? And figuring out how to do some of that better. Have my goals for you.
A couple of questions. If I may. In terms of the operations, the creating the internship and the receptionist position, I think is key, and a couple people have brought up in the past having a services coordinator. That seems like seems like more than what you propose. Having somebody sit there to greet people, but then having the wherewithal to know what services are provided by which departments and having all that information. So I'm thinking that's. I don't see how that could be an internship program per se, but if it was a full-time position, that kind of parallels a couple people rather than put in. So I'm just curious, is it a part-time, is it an intern, is it something at least FTE or?
I would love that. I just don't know, that we have the funding for it. But that ideally, I think that would be the best, yes, but I'm brainstorming and trying to come up with different ways, and an internship was one of the suggestions, maybe for credit. I know more people are interested in cash, and trying to figure that out, right? That's where I'm trying to figure
And under the operations goal number 2, basically, putting in redundancies and cross training and are there, I don't know what the state of SOPs are for all of the departments. I don't see that internally, but where are we in that? So it sounds like you need to put SOPs together, but that is a broader question to everybody. It's like, are those procedures, given that since I've been on council, we had 3 different city managers, 3 different parks, all this kind of stuff, like, where are we in terms of getting that? We talk about training, but how is the documentation matching up with the training progression?
So each department kind of does it their own way. There's not really standard operating procedures for the city manager's office because it's a new person's gonna have different ways about doing things. But we've been trying to get all of our policies together, and keep them in one spot. So we know where to look when things are changing. But a lot of it is just institutional knowledge. So it'll be some work to make sure we put those into a workable policies and SOPs. I know that's something that DPW has been working on a lot in their department, but it's something that we could all focus on and make sure that's documented. So people are aware of what to do in certain situations. And unfortunately, since I've been here, SOPs it was all institutional knowledge. Nothing was really written down specific to how things work here. Yes, you had your ordinances, charter, state statute, and that was something that everybody can understand how it fits in with their department, but nothing in terms of how to function in this building with these people.
Because I think that would be instrumental and for that person sitting in the front office to have that at their disposal so that when somebody comes in with an issue, they've got either an electronic version or even a hard copy to understand where that person needs to be directed for resources. The communications goals, I think, are interesting, and I, years ago, talked about the hired a communications manager that has now changed into shared responsibilities across a couple, 3, 4 different positions. And so how does that fit into your goals in terms of who are you dealing with for each one of those? And I guess that's goes into the SOP as well. So like those job descriptions for the 4 people that kind of share that responsibility, how would Tracy know which one of those to go to for which part of them?
So we did begin since Katie's over that division. She comes to the department head meetings now. So when things are brought up, department heads will then schedule a meeting with the communications team and then kind of strategize on how to disseminate information. And again, they developed internal and external policies, and now we're just working on implementing them.
Okay, so basically it goes through Katie, she determines which of those people.
Correct. She assigns the employee to work with each department. And something just as basic as this department does that, we do have a cheat sheet for that, and it is kept in the clerk department, but we also had it on it's on the shared drive. But I was more referencing specific SOPs for each department and
Sure.
what their work is.
I guess the last thing that I would maybe add is that, there's another goal here that I'll write it down in that, but over the past couple of years, there was an attempt to get information to tenants when they sign a lease, and that went through legal challenges. But finding, as with the voter outreach, have another outreach to renters so that they have that information available to them, and that is.
So that tenants booklet is still a requirement of landlords to provide that. The only thing that was changed is we had to remove the voting information from it. That was where their issue was.
Right. So that, I mean, so that goes with the voter reference.
Yeah, that kind of takes place a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, my hope is that, once the tenants' rights committee meets, which should be soon, that would be one of the big goals is to do tenant outreach and to work with the clerk's office and communications to do.
Any other questions for city clerk? Community services.
Evening, council. So, we're not gonna go through the overview quite as much, because we're gonna go through it, we're going to the meat of the proposal. But obviously, we've broken this down into kind of three different areas, housing, climate resiliency, and communications, and I'm saying communications and not multiple priorities, because communications is a lot of things. And so we'll get into those kind of full scale, but with housing, obviously continue to work with groups of the MDDCH to attract mixed housing developments and identify organizations that work within the space and interested in our community. Continue to nurture the relationships we have, help secure better and more attractive housing of all income levels. This is something we do every day. We meet with developers, usually weekly. A lot of people typically want to just get information about our community. And we're working right now with the Downtown Development Authority to help create a downtown housing plan. We'll get into that a little bit. We're really kind of looking at housing full scale, wholesale, to actually try to get people excited investing in this way, but also get the housing types that we need and want in the city. Obviously, Water Street, these are not in priority order, they're just in numbered order. With Water Street, obviously our number one priority. That's one of Katie's full-time jobs. She's got a few of those, but we set up meetings every week. As you know, we are doing a lot of excavation right now. We have a lot of irons in the fire. We have grants that we're getting. We're having a community meeting. Everyone should have gotten their postcard in the mail. Hopefully, if you did not, please let me know. We do work with the post office to do that. We have that coming up next week. We are trying to secure additional funding, and then we're also working to spend through the $4 million we got from the federal government that's still there. So all of those things about working on an RFP for Water Street, really continuing to help bring that forward to help build housing there, amongst other things. We're in the process of updating the master plan. It's required every 5 years. We're at that 5-year part. We've looked at our zoning ordinance as aggressively as we could to try to squeeze more housing, or at least the ability to create housing out of that. But making sure we put regional best practices that are allowed by law in our master plan so that it can trickle into our zoning ordinance is essential. We're working with our colleagues at the Downtown Development Authority. We do know that there are several unoccupied spaces on the second and third floor of our downtown areas, Depot Town, West Cross, and downtown. And so how do we help incentivize people to come in and actually build housing on the second and third floor? Because a lot easier to put things in than build new from the ground up. The infrastructure is there, water and sewer lines are already there. You're really saving a lot of money. So it's how do we get that to happen? I'm really excited about, and making sure that our city codes can be enforced. And we're working with the city attorney right now on that to help update our housing ordinances to make sure we don't have any large scale disasters in our housing space happening again. So making sure we have tighter language, make sure that things can be enforced more aggressively if we do need to see that happen with bad actors. So those are kind of the big aspects of the housing area. I know that covers a lot. But every bit of every department I work at is really trying to address housing issues on a, I don't even want to say daily basis, because it's hourly. In climate resiliency, you know, one of the things that we really want to help, and I know it might seem weird that historic district is climate resiliency, but keeping what you have and maintaining what you have is actual climate, is a climate resiliency, fact. And so how do we publicize what needs a permit, what doesn't need a permit, how you get that a permit, what is administratively approved, what needs to go to the monthly meeting, when that monthly, trying to really help communicate that is gonna be essential. Cause I think there's a lot of stigmatism, stigma, when it comes to the Historic District Commission, that really, we work through a lot of the barriers that people are concerned about, and so how do we promote that so it's not as scary and people understand what that is? I think that's important. And then, you know, I'm thinking about you, Simmons, and your goals. How do we make sure our codes are enforced consistently? And ensure that, and review it to make sure we're not doing something we shouldn't be doing. I will have all the code enforcement data by the end of the month. It's been a busy few months, but I'm working on compiling that. You'll have kind of exactly what's going on there. But updating and maintaining our codes as we need to, and making sure they're enforced consistently across the board. So those are the two big sustainability goals that we have. Next, communication goals. Like I said, this hits a wide range of goals throughout. I look at communication as being essential to every bit of every goal we have. I hope you have seen an improvement in what we've been doing in communication. I personally have, and we've gotten a lot of compliments. Not that we don't need to do a whole heck of a lot more, we do. But I think we've really come a long way, and it's starting to help our brands. We have some really key goals. Number one, develop critical incident plans in collaboration with all of our departments. Right now, under the leadership of Manager Linga, we have created the framework, we've created the policy, we've created the action, but now really, how do we take the citywide action and really filter it down to each department? So when there is an issue, or there's a house fire, or critical issue, what is the exact plans, what is our policy to follow? We have those, and a lot of the police department has policies they follow, but how do we make sure we can communicate that effectively in a quick time? How do we make sure we communicate what roads are being closed? What you know, we have policies on what we do, but really making sure critical incident plans are enacted so we can make sure everyone knows what's happening. Right now, it's Katie knows, right? And that's because we're kind of creating the department as we go. When Katie's not here, we don't want to have any issues. Making sure we get more followers on our Instagram and Facebook. I know some people have said, oh, you know, Facebook is dying, which I agree with. A lot of people get their information from there, and so right now we want to gain, you know, we want to get up to over 10,000 followers, which is huge. We want to continue to use the Tweet Frog, which was just an idea to tell one story, and people loved it. And then we really try to kind of take something that's a very serious matter and hone it down into like a 3-minute segment and like inform people who don't want to read the 10,000-page document on the brownfield plan of Water Street, right? Yeah. What is Water Street? Some people just need the actual understanding. A lot of people, even though if you've been at MC for a while, you've heard of Water Street, you might not know exactly. And so utilizing that and trying to help brand our communication and make it fun and interesting. And, you know, we're not trying to just connect with the Gen Zers out there, but really trying to connect with the whole community. And I've really been impressed with what our small but fierce communication team can do. And really, I get that it's not what it was envisioned for the communications department. It was meant to be a communication manager, but I do think what we're getting is top notch.
If I could add a little bit onto the communications, I met with the communication team today, and I'm having them put a report together on, you know, how has our, you know, viewership of our different social media platforms, how is that increasing? So they've been tracking data on the days that certain things are viewed on the website. So Tuesdays, it's usually agenda and things to that nature. But kind of put that together so we can understand trends better and provide that to council so council has an idea of the impact that the communications team is having. Also, and this was brought up in public comments about explaining the budget to the public. And we all go through the line by line budget, and yes, we'll still need to do that, but how can we better communicate that to the public in a way that's easy for them to digest rather than just seeing a bunch of numbers on a page and not really know what they're connected to? So that's something that we need to work on as well.
That's, yeah.
Yeah, a couple of just quick questions. Well, one is you're talking about the social media gaining. What is our current followership on our social media?
I think we're at 2,500 followers and I'll get the exact numbers. I think we want to gain 500 followers on Instagram, and I think we're at about 8,500 on Facebook.
You said, so you said
85. Let me get you the exact numbers. I think. I got you. Let me see if I can pull it up.
Okay, but I'm just interested to know where we.
1,092 on Instagram.
Okay.
Thank
you. We're at 7,700 on the Facebook.
And since that communication team came on, I believe we were at something like 400 on Facebook. Instagram.
Yeah.
So it's increased a great deal.
We've had some viral video success with our Dorsey Estates video, just kind of showing the ribbon cutting. We had, I want to say, 180,000 views, which is my opinion viral. Like, we've never had anything.
It is definitely viral. For us, that is viral.
Yeah, that's great. And then, when thinking about, I don't know if this is just missing something you're talking, so updating the master plan to include more housing friendly. I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
If that's missing something, I guess, well, I'll say my thing and then I can say what that might be. One of the thoughts, and I know that this has come up and this is in part tied to enforcement too, which is thinking about like looking at our enforcement pieces and identifying things that might be holdovers from another time. And I know that this has come up when I've had conversation with Josh Burns around like things that are very car centered, not necessarily centered for the way that people get around now, or centered on different things that might have been a culture of living that's changed and shifted as trends have shifted, and how our master plan and then our codes are aligned with those things. And so that was just something that, I'm thinking that that's part of what this is, but just wanting to name that I think those things are very connected.
I completely agree with you. I think that there are a few left vestiges of and what we would call in the nerdy funny word Euclidean zoning, which is kind of the first part of zoning. We've come a long way. I do think there's kind of a push and pull, and Councilmember King, I think will understand this, where parking is like the best example. We've talked with a couple of people directly together about parking. And right now, our parking requirements are actually virtually very small, like compared. But we don't want to see people over park. And I think that's kind of a generalized rule. But the people who are running into issues with our zoning ordinance are people who want to add more parking to their area. And so we do need to reform our parking areas because in our opinion, we don't need to require that much parking. In some cases, I think we've reduced seriously our parking issues. But the only issues we're running into on a routine basis, or anytime we run into an issue and somebody wants to put more parking than what they're allowed. That's where I don't think those two things aren't getting up, because we want to make sure people not have to have as much parking. And the only time we're having the issue with our current zoning ordinance is they would want. But I agree, we need to look at that. The first step in that process is the master plan, because the master plan drives the zoning ordinance. And so we don't need a full aggressive shape FC master plan process. I think the bones of it are good, but we do need to have substantial updates. to 2026.
One question that I have, and this may not just be for you, I think it's more so, it's around, in the communication go around the critical incident plans. Getting the incident plans together, actually getting into the granular for each department, but one thing that I think I brought up, I think I brought this up last year too, were around like tabletops and like us doing things to prepare or to practice if there was a critical incident. And I'm wondering if that would be a part of this, or would I need to like add that as another goal that we would want for?
So I don't know the exact title, but we do have an emergency plan. We've not, it needs to be updated. I think it was last done in 2021. And so that coordinator is the fire chief. And then there is where we would kind of house this, and emergency coordination would be at the fire department. But I think it would be a good idea to kind of test these things and to get some experience with working through those.
I think like the last two MML conferences, I want to say, there were really in-depth presentations around the benefit to everyone knowing what to do and what is everyone's role when something critical is happening or emergency is happening in the community. And as we can see, a few weeks ago, that would have been helpful if we had practice in like, there is something emergent happening that is impacting the entire community, and knowing where to go for information or who we put out front to give information, because folks had lots of questions and getting answers from all over the place around who that should be. And I mean, I think that this also includes us doing things in coordination with other entities, but I mean, if we start in-house around police, fire, DPW, what the staff in City Hall need to do, what does council need to do, what is our role when something like that is happening, what is my role when something like that is happening, I think that's really important for us.
I think that this piece directly addresses, and my goals directly address what you're talking about, where we have the critical incident plans and emergency plans through the fire department, police department, like those processes are there, but how we tell people, how we communicate that is where, because we haven't had a communications department, realistically, we haven't had that piece. And so that's where, you have to walk before you run. You have to crawl before you can walk, before you can run. Right now, we've been crawling and now we're walking. I feel like I can honestly say we are walking with our communications bit, and we're doing proofs. But I think developing these critical incident plans are gonna help us. The training piece is like a little separate, but it does.
Right, having the plan is kind of where we're at now, but I think I want to take this a step further around, especially for us. You all have access and are in here and know, but council don't. But people are gonna be asking us, the questions, so that's important.
Communication is a large part of that plan. But there's different roles for sergeants and lieutenants, the police department, as
Right.
well as the fire department. Each department in City Hall has an aspect to that plan. DPW is a huge part of that plan, so it's really kind of working through that and understanding what we need to do in our roles in that. And I agree, training on that would be critical, so we can actually use the plan.
Yeah, I just want to mention that the short-term rental committee has been, meeting to create policy around the short-term rental issue, and a lot of the conversation is actually around the enforcement mechanism going through your department and what that would look like. So the intention to visit that is kind of like, how do we incorporate it into our existing departments, because it will probably end up requiring some additional labor. So it would be good to work on that together and just like keep it in mind for how you're figuring out these goals.
Completely agree.
A couple questions. Been a year. Jerry's been here. where questions about staffing for the building department. So, of course, it's been a busy year we've been behind for a number of years. Just trying to bring that into routine. Yep. But this past year, it's had a new department. A need for contractual services still, for overflow and or reserve plan for paying the department.
So this will be coming in the budget. We haven't fully worked out all the details, but the building department's a little different now because it is self-funding, so it's not. A new staff member wouldn't directly impact the general fund's bottom line. Through the city attorney's office, we are in the process of probably going to 1 year annual inspections for multifamily. That will require another inspector. I think that Mr. Dunham has done a phenomenal job at actually getting us where we needed to be. Our rental inspectors have more knowledge than they ever have. They understand what the building code says, not just the property maintenance code, and not everyone loves him, but they respect it. And what we're trying to do now, because I know you all get complaints about certain landlords or certain buildings or certain properties. We're trying to hit that up front, and so Mr. Dunn and I have been meeting with certain property owners that are falling behind a little bit on their responsibilities as property managers. And heading that off that way. But I would say we are as caught up as we ever have been. There with rental inspections, there's always moving targets. But we are as caught up as we've ever been in our rental department. I mean, there's probably some that are 2 years, 2.5 years, but we're working to get them certified. But most people are on the 2-year cycle now, especially all of our major complexes. Some of the houses are where we fall behind a little bit, but there will be a need for probably an additional FTE, but that will be fully funded by the inspection department. And that's to be coming in the budget. It won't affect the general fund at all. But with that, we also, if we can get somebody who is a building inspector, not that we're looking to stop using Carlisle Wortman. What that'll mean is it'll allow us to stop using Jerry as much so he can actually manage the department and actually be the full-time building official and not have to step in for staff as they call. And so, I do believe that he'll be able to fit in the budget, but we are doing more rental inspections than we ever have. We have phenomenal staff who are very well trained, and have learned exponentially from.
Second question is, about an emergency act, the definition here of critical incident, right? Having a critical incident plan, it's like the difference between that and emergency action plan. And so I did the training at I attended a couple of things at the MML about emergency preparedness and such, and you know, I think this goes hand in hand with building tests that have been in the works for quite some time, and getting that figured out as well, so that, you know, in the case of, you know, tornadoes, so that fires, massive power outage, so that those. So I'm not sure if that's included in the critical incidents that you're talking about.
I think that's a part. I think that there's also a fine line of the county has an emergency operations center when an emergency happens, it's countywide, and so this would be a part of that, but it wouldn't take over for the emergency manager that the county has. It's just more of a helping to communicate what the police, the fire, and DPS departments are doing in city manager and city council as critical incidents come up. So these are more, if this type of incident happens, this is the protocol. Obviously, you can't plan for every single possible incident, sure, but most of our incidents you can actually plan for, and then you kind of have a catch-all.
I guess I would encourage, in light of all time, and in recent events, not being reliant on the county. For that, yeah, I know, and that's why we need to create. Like I said, so we have the strategy, the framework, and then the actual plan document, which have all been completed for communications. And part of that was to actually create department specific. Alright, so, and, you know, I think back to, the pandemic and meeting with folks from the county, health department and sitting through meetings and, the conversations about where people could access vaccines, where the stations would be throughout the county, and you know, the person who was chairing that meeting could name every single site, and when Albert couldn't name a single one in it, and he said that, yep, it's not, it's all time. Yep. No, I look forward, that's all.
If I could add one thing to the additional FTE, I believe it's going to be a building inspector as well as a rental inspector. So they can fill both roles.
That's our plan, that's our hope.
Any other questions?
I do have a quick question. You mentioned, the housing types we want and need. Which are the ones that we need here in Ypsilanti?
I would say that we need more, middle income housing of various types, and I'm saying that kind of broadly because there's no one thing. Townhouses get to be a little bit more expensive, but we do need them. We have very few in the city. We probably have, well, after Dorsey Estates is fully completed, we're gonna have about 20 townhouses total. It's a type of housing that people like, and we have none of. I think we have a lot of single family homes. But we need to be able to really do more with less, so we don't have a lot of land. And so stacked flats are an option, and you see those at Stadium Meadows, but once again, those aren't selling it for as high a value as some of the other types. So I don't want to pigeonhole us into any one type of housing, and I also think there are several types of housing that certain people build that are unique. And I know some developers, we talk about a senior style development where they share certain amenities and have their own kind of apartments. And so, we want to know what the community wants, and that's going through the master plan process. I think people like single family homes, but they take up a lot of land. They just do. You look at the lots that you may have at your house versus the lot at Dorsey Estates, those lots are a lot smaller. Because the more land, you have, the less housing you can put on it. So, there's, you know, apartments. Of all income types that we need. We really have we have a very small percentage of high-end rental houses. And so we end up losing people who want to live in the city to the Canton area and the Ann Arbor area and the Ypsilanti Township area. We don't have those in our city. And so I think it's all, you can't look at just one type of apartment for housing type that we kind of need to look at what the land area is and what the availability of that is and what the developer is proposing. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, thank you.
Another question. Intensive communities. So there's at least 3 communities on the west side of Ann Arbor, Jackson Road. Has that been put into its consideration of Water Street or any place else in the city?
Yeah,
Cooperative housing, so people have their own, they're condos at a certain point, but there's a clubhouse and they're arranged so that, you know, when we were talking the last time for Water Street, in terms of having areas that were, there were no auto traffic, and so you park around the perimeter, there's the inside. Communal services are available. Well,
So some of the people we have talked to about Water Street would be, obviously, I'm not a developer yet, but they've talked about very intentional communities and so co-ops sometimes be a little bit challenging based on just how the state of Michigan assesses taxes. Because if it's not owned, if you can't put a PRE on it, then you don't get the tax benefit, it costs more for the taxes. But that typically gets to be a little bit challenging. But yes, they're allowed via our ordinance, there's nothing stopping them. It's just getting the land to the developer who can actually make that.
Okay, I know the ones on the west side, they're way out there because that's where the land was affordable, but even with that, there was a high capital investment for each one number, so. I was curious because that it's now the community behind the county park, but my farm park area.
We've had talks with Viridian, the Viridian group, we've had talks with, and we talk to you all the time, and we give them all the information, we tell them everything we have with the city of planning. But we also say, this is gonna go out to an RFQ, so get ready for when that can drop, we don't know when it's gonna drop, because there's, we know there's gonna be a committee and how that's gonna work, but, we definitely. I would say weekly, we have meetings with developers, but once again, we can't say, here you go, here's Water Street, because that's not.
Yes, I'm glad that Councilmember King brought up housing types and just want to, uplift that people have been asking about housing co-ops for years. We have 0 housing co-ops in the city of Ypsilanti, so would like to look at how we might be able to change our regulatory structure to encourage housing co-op types, as well as get the community services to prioritize that too. It's a conversation all the time and I never see it in any of our lists. There's also a new urbanist groups popping up in Ypsilanti that are very interested in various different housing types. So I think it would be good to make connections with those residents that are very interested in that. And I guess just I'm sure there's alignment here, but more density for downtown housing makes more sense than the townhome style. Because of the how much land is being taken up for single home.
I think one of the reasons why, like, our ordinance is developed for cooperative housing for a number of years. I mean, it's well before I'm aware, so those have always been allowed. I would have to look at how we could incentivize it more than what we do, because we don't require any additional steps when it comes to cooperative housing than we do with any other development. Yeah.
I noticed that it gets developed in other communities that are surrounding us, but it doesn't get developed here, so.
I think the biggest part of that is just the actual size of the scale of land that they need. We just don't, we have probably 2 1-acre lots in the city and then Water Street, and some old manufacturing areas. And so there's not just the actual, typically when people are looking to do a residential development, they're looking for at least 10 acres. And outside of Water Street or Little Ford plant, you're not gonna get 10 acres. And so that's where we run into the same, that's where we always run into the problem, is the actual availability of land.
I guess a lot of housing co-ops are standalone single residencies too, so I know that within developer models, it's usually going for larger amounts of land, but it's not always.
Well, I was just gonna say to this, and I know when we're looking at different developments, that there's different outreaches and partnerships with different bank partners and different things like that for financing. And I think that, from the challenges that as I understand them around some of the cooperatives or different things like that, it's partially financing, because it's also how people, how you can even get loans. It's so hard to do them where it's multiple people on it at the time. And so I don't know if there's different things or what that looks like, but I know that that's one of the challenges from some folks who have been trying to do this here, even within some of the large houses, like when we think about some of our historic homes, and people were trying to cooperate those as an example, that's a challenge with that. And I don't know if there's different programs or things that we could look at or try to work with the bank around some of that could help ease that burden.
We tried working with our local bank, for Dorsey Estates,
Mhm.
and they said they don't do single family or small, like less dense, like they only do apartment buildings, they don't work with single family home developers or townhome developers. That's not part of the portfolio. And so that's where that's the biggest thing we have.
I just have one other question, in terms of the MC Housing Commission and an expanded role for that, I mean, it doesn't fall necessarily under your, control in your department, to put that out there. You know, talking with the folks in the Ann Arbor Housing Commission, talking with folks here, like that is a policy change that would have to happen to get that to be them to be a more active partner in more than just the properties that they manage now or don't manage. To have a bigger role in helping with the housing. So,
We've worked with the housing commission, to try to identify sites, and they run into the same financing problem that most developers run into, which is rural housing is hard. And it's, and you have to find the right banks, the right people, but we have worked with them in the past and we will continue to.
is there any way to work with Ann Arbor Housing Commission? Because they're finding creative ways to finance buildings, they're buying up buildings, they're building buildings, they're, you know, and I'm like, I know it's a different development culture for that city, but she's really smart, and really creative about it, she was good. Yeah.
Especially as we have a big landlord trying to dump a lot of housing. Maybe we can repurpose all of that for other uses. Just saying.
That is what we should be doing.
I mean, that's just,
That is what we should be doing. So,
yeah.
yes, let's get a more functional housing commission goal.
I know, where does that sit though? So as you're saying, like the Pelican music here, where does that sit?
City manager.
The housing commission is a separate entity. They're the only thing that the city does is appoint its membership for the board.
Maybe that's like a conversation or like some kind of.
I was pretty. Sorry.
No, I'm just thinking about like, how do we connect some of these dots in that way? Like, is it like going to their, I don't want to get too far, but I was just thinking, as this came up, that this makes sense for timing wise and also this conversation.
But they were created by a city board, right?
I mean, similar to the DDA created by a city board.
So we could amend that ordinance.
You could, but I'd have to look at the state law, and I also know that our housing commission is functionally different than the Ann Arbor Housing
That's what I'm
Commission.
saying, make it functionally the same as theirs,
Well,
so they can do the things that.
That wasn't necessarily the housing commission's. They did not want to change that. That's just what happened.
Well, we can change
Okay.
it back. Yes, I agree, that should be changed.
Anything else for Joe?
I just have a quick question, and it may be just wording, but I just want to make sure. On number 2, it says where to get a developer. I just wanted to, we're not just looking for one, right?
It could be one, but realistically, it'll probably be a consortium of people. A developer was just.
Okay.
You know, we are not looking for only one. If one has all of the technical expertise and skills to do it, I doubt that. Right. Change the word to work to get
Developer or
development. Development, yes.
Sure.
And then also just, I did miss a few words in the.
Yeah, I was with that, we can.
Update master plan to include more housing friendly base in regional, more housing friendly language. Based on regional practices.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Downtown development.
It's okay. Thank you, Joe. Hello, again.
Hello. Everybody.
How you doing?
So the DDA, our goals, they don't vary a whole lot from last year. Just a lot of them you'll see are continuing and expanded. We have a year, like planning, the sessions that we've been doing, with some folks from the Michigan Downtown Association. And so we're expanding on things like economic vitality. That's one of our biggest goals. And what that means for us is, it means a lot of things. We've got a district vitality committee, which is new this year. So we're talking a lot about things like consistent business hours, second floor housing, opportunities, density, market analysis. These are a few things that Joe had mentioned because we are doing some partnership with cities and been great to work with them so far. Filling gaps in storefront uses, knowing what those gaps are. It's gonna be really important, and we hope that that also will help address what you guys decide to do with Water Street eventually. Both kind of balance each other out at some point. Addressing vacancies, having more partnerships with the city. Sorry about that. Training opportunities with MML, business incubation, training, and resources. Taking looks at our grants program, if there's any changes or any pivots that we want to do there. Connecting resources with property owners so that they are able to renovate their spaces, second floors or first floors. Making sure property owners are vetting their commercial tenants and holding them accountable if they aren't. Zoning ordinance recommendations to the city, building volunteerism, kind of an all hands on deck approach to bring more pride into the city. Safety, accessibility, cleanliness, those sorts of things. So that is what we mean by economic vitality. It also includes, you need to secure, our TIF renewals. So they'll be talking to us a little bit about that later. Yeah, I think I covered it there. We are also focused this year on some physical and infrastructure maintenance, which was one of your priorities as well. So capital projects, like parking lots, deferred maintenance. We had a board meeting this morning. We're hoping to be able to help out with the Michigan Avenue Center medians, which are crumbling, and those ongoing parking lots. Like Ballard Black going from a mill and overlay to a full reconstruct, something that I'm looking forward to. Organizational governance, well, we are hoping this year to take a look at our bylaws and policies and get that all sorted out. We, as well, just in the office where Tracy was talking about files and files and files, I also have those, and so I might be talking to you about a little stipend to figure that out as well. Board training, capacity building, just giving opportunities to our board members as well, so that they can make informed decisions about
Thanks. Community and social impact, is something that we also, up high on our goals. So that's strengthening connections between DDA residents, local institutions, that's through events and activation, EMU engagement, district branding, collaboration. This morning, we had our board meeting this morning as well. We talked a lot about, just even updating our, we don't have a CRM dashboard that can help us track our communications and our interactions with business owners, property owners, so that we can also get them all the resources that they need on behalf of the DDA, but also a lot of times we're sharing a lot of the things from the building department and planning department, BPW. We're always sharing what you guys are doing so that they know what's going on and they're informed. Our focuses this year.
Question?
Just to start, I guess the top it mentions personnel development, how, I just don't know if I saw it in here. Or what that mention was about.
That's bad.
Oh, no, it's not on there.
I forget.
And I did wanna, I know we had an email about the grant, I think MML grant, opportunity for small manufacturing downtown. I'm just wondering if that's like still being pursued and if it's in this plan at all.
Really,
Go ahead.
we have been selected as a community,
Okay.
so, Katie and I are partnering on that, so it's a recast, it's called recast. Small business, manufacturing within downtowns, scalable small manufacturing. And it's a 10-week cohort. We just, got the announcement, was it yesterday? The Ypsilanti was selected as one of the, 6 communities in Southeast Michigan.
That's great, snooze.
Yeah, that's part of this, vitality set that we're really looking forward to. Also, MML is, working with, Katie and I, the economic development, office and myself on some extra, training and coaching as well. We haven't quite selected what the angle is there, but we had our initial interview today. Yeah.
That's great. Yes, great news, and I guess that's when I'm finding myself in these different goals, is one of the things that we didn't have on the top is just pursuing more grants like that, which I think is something I would just encourage. I know that all departments are gonna be doing this, but I know that there wasn't a grant that was secured for the redevelopment of the Freight House lot, so yeah, using time to continue pursuing those grants seems like a good use of energy.
Yeah, and we always keep our eyes out if you see any of those grants, especially some of those more placemaking ones that make sense for us. If we be able to have move forward.
I guess just one thing about the media project. Lots of cyclists, running about Michigan, and that's pretty wide median for a large part of that. Keeping it the same size, restructuring it as if you were doing that, repave the, gotta repave, but changing the streetscape so that it's more friendly for.
Yeah, I mean, so right now, what we're looking to do is just take care of the crumbling curbs, so no big changes there. I know that Bonnie's working on some safety changes over down by is it Ballard Street? By those terminals. Of the bollards, cars from coming over that median, but yeah, I think for us, we're noticing a lot of just deterioration and crumbling that I just want to address. There is a bigger
need or a bigger want to change the actual streetscape, I mean, something that we probably look at together, but as you know, none of that. Sorry, I didn't get away, so. Yeah, so that's just stuff about it.
Okay.
Anything else for Louise? So they mentioned the downtown water fountain. I know that it's being worked on a little bit. And public kiosks. Yeah, so as far as public kiosks go, a few locations that I had initially looked at, one of them, I was really hoping for Library Plaza, but where they have a policy that doesn't allow them to, or every basic flyer needs to be approved by the director, so that would prove a little difficult for an outdoor kiosk, and so they said no to that. But I am open to other locations as well, as long as it works with the city and the rules for if it happens to be on Michigan Avenue. Great. Water fountain, we are looking at getting one on South Washington and working with the construction that will be happening over down at Growing Hope. And working that out, but we have intentions to get that ordered and hopefully have that in either the spring or summer. But you want to say so? Yeah.
I do, not this one.
Oh, okay. All right, anything else? Well, thanks, I will.
Thank you. Chief of Fire.
Hello.
Yeah.
Here, you ready, Lisa?
Yeah.
All right, for the fire department goals. You break them down into 3 different categories: staffing and training and apparatus. This is pretty much the same thing from last year. Some things are moved, some are expanded. We'll start with the staffing goals. Staffing, increase daily staffing from a minimum of 4 to 5 per day. And this could be done by policy changes, it wouldn't have to be contractual. And if you ignore the numbers on the budget, I put numbers in here. Those numbers I've got the finance director, not accurate numbers. I based off of last year's overtime budget, but there's factors included in that. Someone on military leave, someone on maternity leave, someone on extended light duty leave, and someone's attending staffing command. So those are necessary factors for the next overtime budget. So that number will probably increase. But my increase I'm looking at is probably $20,000. So those numbers are not actively there. The next one is training and advancement goals, and these are pretty much the same thing as last year, right? And these things are ongoing and continuing. Operations to improve the skills of firefighters and the department, overall response capabilities while meeting national standards and requirements set by the Michigan Firefighters Training Council. Identify and provide qualified classes that continue to bring in outside instructors for training for 25, 26 and ongoing. This continued. We have identified several trainings for the upcoming year already. They're already posted, already have people signing up to attend these classes. And so that's an ongoing thing that's always going to be there. Prepare firefighters equally to test and advance within the department, provide equal training for all shifts, 25, 26 and ongoing. Same thing here. This year, we are going to have contracts and promotional exams for the fire marshal's position and the captain's position, because we have 2 people eligible for retirement. I'm not saying they're going to leave, but contractual language, 2 years prior, when they are eligible to retire, we have to have a list in place every 2 years. So we try to train our people so they're all on equal grounds. They have plenty of time to prepare and to test for it. Administrative to improve the quality of services of inspection investigations and enforce fire code. That's Fire Marshal Foley working closely with the building department. And right now it seems that things are really going good. He also does arson investigations. Distribute smoke detectors and CO2 detectors. We have a grant provided through the state. We put that in the city information on the website and newsletters and things like that. And there are people that continually call to meet private homeowners, not apartments, because they're responsible for their own. And I was at the senior center today. I met with people at the senior center today. Michelle invited me up there, and Michelle invited me up there. And same thing. I had that conversation with some people there about their smoke detectors, CO2 detectors in private homes, and try to expand that. Apparatus. This is a continuation from last year, and we've already started. This is ongoing. We started last year. Be compliant with NFP A1911. I know links, we don't have to do all of that. Our budgeting for, and you guys already approved the apparatus, the aerial apparatus, and we're budgeting for truck replacements because we know they're at like, every 20 years, 15 out of service, and then 20 years replacement. So we're trying to comply with that. That's the next one, to develop a vehicle replacement plan. We're working on that with the city manager and finance director. Applying for grants, that's ongoing. We're already in the process of doing that. So those are ongoing things. There's two new things on here. And when I do these fire department goals, I reach out to my officers and I get this input from my captains. The one on here is purchase a set of Hurst hydraulic jaws. We have a set of jaws that were purchased in 2007, and the technology and everything has changed since then. You grab the ones from 2007, they're directly tied to the truck. The hydraulics are tied to the trucks. They're limited mobility. It takes a real person to grab them, hold them, work with them. The jaws, the cutters, and the spreaders. The technology has changed now. Those things are lightweight. One person can handle them easily. We have one set like that, but we have I wouldn't say an antiquated set that needs to be replaced. And then purchase the personal thermal imaging cameras. There's a TIC. That's to increase our situational awareness and personal safety. When I first hired in, I'm gonna date myself. A TIC, one individual thermal imaging camera with the technology was like $30,000. Now we're estimating we can buy one for each individual for $30,000. Any questions?
Questions for G-Pop?
Over here.
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
So as it stands right now, what is the current staffing level of our fire department?
We are fully staffed. We have 21 personnel in suppression. There's a captain and a lieutenant at each shift and 5 firefighters. We're fully staffed.
Okay.
That's why my goals for staffing has changed from it was last year to be fully staffed. We're fully staffed. We have no issues. I think we got a good core group of people. I don't see anybody leave.
Okay, so we don't have to search out any more people to take over.
No, I'm so glad that process is over.
Perfect. Thank you.
What process? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
It's a hiring process.
Hiring. Oh, okay.
That whole thing
Okay.
takes, months and years, it seems like, to get
Yeah.
qualified people in place.
Perfect.
Councilor Rose?
Yeah, I saw that the smoke and CO2 program was happening and that seems to be great. I'm curious how many people are utilizing it at this point.
I can get you the exact number from the fire marshal, because he manages that program.
Uh-huh.
And what we do is people call in and he returns their call, he sets his own appointments, and he actually goes out and does the installations. They have to be tracked through the state because it's through a grant. And then all the information goes back to the Bureau of Fire Service and the state fire marshal office. And that's how they justify to continuing the program. And
Yeah.
these things are free.
Well, I think it would just be nice to know it in a future report of how it's going.
Not a problem, absolutely.
Because it's a nice thing to see if it's being utilized a lot. And I just want to say, like, looking through this, seems about right, but I would be remiss to not mention policy review and change with regard to the use of fire equipment for police operations.
I don't have a problem, I'll address that right now if you don't mind. So there was not a policy in place, and for that particular incident, that was, let's say, a police tactical incident. There was a request made 29 hours into it, and based on all the information at the time, I made a decision. It may not have been the best one. After that all went down the way it did, met with the city manager and the police chief, and in the process of developing a policy, so it doesn't happen again, but that's how I'm gonna address that.
And I guess, would it be similar for other types of equipment too, like you wanna replace, and get new hydraulic jaws? Would that be the same?
We have policies on that, but their jobs are specific for vehicle extrications, and they would never be used in that type of situation. And there's language in there to address that also. And the way the policy, the fire department goes, once the policy is written, it has to be presented to the union, and the union also has to buy into the policy. And once we both parts agree to that, then I will present that to the city manager, and I'm sure he'll be glad to present it to you.
Yeah, we would like to look at that too.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to the point of the hydraulic jaws, I was at the open house. And
Yeah.
I saw a couple of the guys struggling with that, and it was like,
If you
It
ever
would
grab
bend
hold
the
of one of
door.
those things,
it would bend the door, but it wouldn't open.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that.
you're welcome to try it sometime. The training class.
On my car or somebody else.
I can do, I'll provide the vehicle for you.
No, I mean, this seems straightforward, is great. I appreciate the training that you had talked about, getting folks within the department to a level that they be doing training for other folks as well. I think that's-
And we're getting, we're there. We're doing real good, very progressive.
Any other questions for the chief office?
Yeah, I guess when those policy things come back, I do wanna see how, cause you have the thermal imaging cameras too, just. None of these equipment should be used for police operations.
That's
so-
all included in the policy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna answer all your questions.
Yeah.
As soon as the policy comes, you'll read there and it's gonna address all your issues. I can guarantee you that.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, chief office.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Finance.
Hello.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So the Finance Department strategic goals focus on public infrastructure and staff capacity, specifically in asset management, security, and training. Our main responsibility is to protect city assets, financial systems, and data while supporting transparency and long-term sustainability. Our goal 1 is asset management, and we believe this is under the theme of public infrastructure. The city manages significant physical and financial assets, and consistent tracking is critical to protecting this public infrastructure. Our goal is to implement a standardized citywide asset management framework coordinated closely with DPW. Assets were prioritized in early 2025 based on risk, value, and operational impact. Tracking criteria and reporting standards are now in place. Also, the BSNA financial system was implemented in February 2025 and is being used to support asset tracking and reporting. Ongoing training will continue through June 2026 to ensure consistent and reliable asset data. The goal 2 is security, and still under the theme of public infrastructure. Financial systems are critical public infrastructure, just like our roads, facility, and bridges. Protecting financial data is essential to maintaining operations, public trust, and city service continuity. We are implementing position-based access controls, ensuring staff only have access to information necessary for their roles. Also, we've implemented two-factor authentication and encryptions for sensitive financial data. A data backup and disaster recovery plan was already discussed with DuPont to ensure continuity in the event of a cyber incident or system failure. These measures strengthen internal controls and reduce city exposure to operational and financial risk. Our goal 3 is training and staff capacity, which is under the theme of personal training and development. A strong public infrastructure requires trained and knowledgeable staff. So we are providing comprehensive training on BSNA system for budgeting, accounting, reporting, and asset tracking. Department office managers are included to support consistency across department. We are also cross-training our accounting and treasury staff to improve flexibility, knowledge sharing, and operational resilience. Full functional proficiency is targeted by June 2026 with regular process checking. So these goals strengthen public infrastructure, financial controls, and staff capacity. And we will continue to update council and adjust as needed based on feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for Reagan?
We have, Mr. McLean back on.
He had to get off around 6:30. He said he's gonna try to get back on.
A great
I
time.
know, it's his favorite part. Councilor Fellow. Yeah, one of the issues that have come up over the last year is like difficulty with public members and even council members finding information about some of the budget ledger details of certain expenditures, and so I'm wondering how that might be improved for transparency to the public. As far as FOIA goes, as far as council asking questions about it.
For public ledger data, that's very detailed, so if there's a request, and they know specifically what they want, we're able to provide them. But if someone would ask us, like in some FOIAs that we've received, they want like very vague information. And so that's also hard on our part to provide them. But if it's a fund or a particular account that they want to know, it's easily generated by our software.
I guess I would request to maybe review that. Some of the requests, because they're very detailed over the last year, so I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but I know that it's been happening over and over, so I wanna review it with. Finance department, just, and I think one of the goals should be transparency. I know that security is a priority here and making sure that people that can, I guess, related to that, because you're saying position-based access control. So does that mean that ultimately only you have access to all the information and everybody else is based on position-based access control?
Yeah, so we have enterprise administrators, one of them, and I think city manager. But for information like financials, it's usually just the finance department. So if you need information for financials, you could talk to me or our accounting supervisor.
So how does fraud happen then, when, like, if there was the issue with the prior city manager and not having that information really easily available until much later? So how would that be prevented, and how can people look into our, finances to make sure that everything's okay?
So we usually have an external audit, so we have auditors that come in on a yearly basis. So they do check our records. And internally, we also do our internal audits, so. And we have internal controls, like for purchases, there should be a 2 signatories. If there's also a certain amount thresholds. So let's say a purchase is under 5,000, that's under the purview of a department director. If it's 5,000 and over, it goes to me and the city manager, and if 25,000, it goes to the council.
Yeah, I understand that. I guess just I would hope that you would add into these goals transparency, since it's been a topic over the years as far as how money's been managed by staff, and as well as like questions from the community trying to get information, and even a question tonight during public comment about accessibility of budget information. So just hoping to improve that over the next year.
Yeah, probably maybe what we can do is also like to communicate it, because all our information is available in the city website. We have a budget book that's posted there on a yearly basis. Our audits are there on the website as well. But probably some of our residents doesn't know how to access them.
I mean, I try and it's difficult. It's not very accessible.
And yeah, we can definitely look into your request, improve, that's why we're here.
Yeah.
To that point, does the BSNA have, modules? I know it has different modules that you can implement at different times. And, do they have a dashboard module to fill this role in terms of having that readily available? I mean, the executive summary of the budget every year has, I think, decent, visualizations of expenditures and revenues and things like that, and that's always really great. When we get into the line items, people would like to zone out, right? But I think the visualizations within that are good, but finding them within those documents is the problem. So I was wondering if BSNA has a dashboard that we can be pushed to the website.
I'll look into it, because we do have a dashboard, but I'm not sure how, like, if it goes to the public. But each user of the city, we have our own dashboard that helps us with our own responsibilities, but I'm not sure if there's a dashboard that we could use for the public. I could ask.
Also, the dashboard for the general ledger, it's not very important.
Right, but I guess what I'm looking for is a much more simplified version, right? So within the company I work for, I can go at any time internally and see a dashboard in terms of what sales are. I think that's there. It gives, quarterly information, year to date, those kinds of things. And so if we're, as we move through a fiscal year, major budget allocations and things like that, and how they fit within just the year to date kind of information, whether it's tabular or in graphical form, might be up. So I would think BSNA would start with that.
They do, they have a dashboard, it's just, it is lacking. Quite that.
Thanks.
Oh, no, good.
The other question I had was in terms of our investments. So, the goal, so, different city managers in the past and different finance directors were actively moving, to increase revenue from investments. Or they were planning for, how you go about establishing, that plan. I know we have contracts with other financial planning ventures like brokerages. I guess the question is, if I want to do my personal finances and I have retirement accounts, things like that, I go to a personal financial consultant. And so does the city have that contractual arrangement with somebody else? Do you do that personally?
We do that in the city, but we do use different banks to diversify. Like for municipalities like us, it's limited on where we could invest our money, unlike for retirement accounts, where we really need money managers who are experts. But then for us, we need to invest our surplus funds into those secure and like liquid and some that gives us a little bit of yield. So some other municipalities I know they do contract that out. But when you contract that out, you'll be paying for money for fees.
Yeah.
That probably we can do. Probably they'll also invest in the same investments that we currently have access to. So, but council would like to direct us and look for a contractor that to do it for us. We could also take that.
Yeah, so I'll add on to a couple of things my colleagues have said. I think one thing with the investments, I know at some point we were emailing and I probably dropped the ball on the email thread. But just to the conversation about investments, that there's interest in looking at having our investments not be invested, like thinking about BDS divestment and just being really clear about our goals in that way and having those align with our goals. And so whether we have things invested in places that kind of run counter to some of the things the city has set forward elsewhere. So I don't know if that's something as you all are looking into that to be able to identify what those investments might be and how those can shift to other funds.
So, the city does have, an investment policy. And we use that when we invest our surplus funds.
Hmm.
But if there are additional, restrictions that council wants us to implement, then we could update that investment policy.
Okay, I'm gonna write that down so I can make sure. And then the other thing I was just gonna say is, to the piece around transparency, I think that's really important, especially, and also for the public, that there's certain areas, like buckets of money that they're tend to be more interested in, like the public health, the public safety, mental health millage. I think transparency will help so that, as we work our way, my dream, around participatory budgeting, which might actually help us to fund and reach some of our goals to process, but that's gonna be necessary for that, and what of these systems would be able to be helpful so that people can know what information and things of that sort. So even thinking about how we start to visualize the information, and make it more accessible for folks around certain pots of money, that might actually help too. And then the last thing I was just gonna mention, and this is something that I know, I spoke with Councilmember McLean about some time ago, but this is something that came up in some of the things that we passed around forecasting. And so one of the things that's kind of missing in here, right, is thinking about, how different things might change and then how that might impact, right, what the city needs to look for. So as we're talking about needing to look for grants, I know that we kind of just run in a space of being like grants, we just need grants to do anything, right? But that there's things that we might be better able to plan for or forecast based on that. Thinking about changes in market, so, are there expected changes that we should be aware of and preparing for with the changes in the cannabis tax? As an example, like, is that going to impact that flow of revenue for the city and how we might need to be prepared for looking at that? So just like thinking about how we can get some things that could be like more proactive, I guess, out of understanding our financial picture, I think would be helpful.
Kind of along those lines, recent policies about accessing the rainy day fund. And that's based on assessments and great statements that you make. So we'll provide for. I asked this question. Are you comfortable at this time making those determinations? Is there information or training that you would like to have that would help you do that?
Yeah, so we are members of MGFOA, and we actively are in communication with the state. So most of the time, if there are like instances where we think that major revenues from the state, like our state shared revenue, is gonna decrease, we are informed of those possible changes to our revenues.
Okay, so that's continuing on.
And I think on that policy as well that we've just recently had, I think they also laid out there on in terms of our recession, then those information should be like in public information as well. So those are coming from the federal government. So we would know, and then eventually we could share that information to council.
Okay.
Yeah, just one support for the updating the investment policy for council, so hopefully we can bring that sooner than later. And did want to mention, you know, because we have our new budget stabilization fund, and part of that was to increase our credit rating. I'm hoping that we can look into, you know, bond capacity this year or in the near future, and potentially invest in our housing trust fund so that we can develop more housing or affordable housing down the line. And so, yeah, I'm just curious, if your department's looking into our credit rating and like what we have as capacity, in the next year or so.
So we do have calculations with regards to our bonding capacity. But then when it comes to the credit rating, that is something that's being done by a third party entity. Usually like Standards Board or Moody's. So, yeah, we do get a rating. I think most, if we're planning to borrow, I think they will assess our credit rating. And having that rainy day fund would really help with our credit.
Great. And just one last thing, it was mentioned during public comment, and I agree that if, you know, we can determine fair council compensation as part of the next budget plan, that I think would be more helpful than us determining it, as I know you have done in the past, so I'm just requesting that happens again.
We'll note that.
Anything else for Reagan? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is human resource.
Oh, my goals are a continuation from last year. For now, it's gonna always be retention and recruiting, communication and digitalization goals. So now we want to improve retention metrics by reducing voluntary turnover by 10 to 15%. Last year, I think our voluntary termination went down from the previous year. Also, we want to streamline onboarding and identify 3 cost-effective vendors by June. This was a goal last year. I did identify vendors. It was iSolve, Bamboo HR, and HiBob. But they were very high and didn't integrate well with BSNA. So now I'm looking to find other vendors that not as high as cost and will also integrate with BSNA. And then we would like to review documentation of management training programs. This is a new goal. It was mentioned, okay, on Tuesday. So this is a new goal that we're looking to implement so that we can do that across the board. Although each department does have their own training programs available based on their departments. We have communication goals, so we want to analyze our onboarding survey data. We collected some data in 2025, so we want to implement at least 2 data-driven onboarding and provisions to improve new hire engagement. So we started the onboarding survey. So whenever someone is hired, within maybe 2 to 3 weeks of them being onboarded, we send an onboarding survey just to get input on what they feel they wish they knew or what we're doing right, what we need to update or improve on. So far, from the last year, 5 people responded, because it's not mandatory. So we do have a little bit of data there. And then, in addition to that, we also have our exit interviews. We were doing them in person, but we found a lot of people didn't want to come in and speak to us. So we created an electronic version. Since that creation, only had 3 people respond. So for attracting and retaining talent, we want to monitor the turnover trends. The training is new. We still want to enhance our employee communication and engagement. We're still recognizing employees as best we can, we're recognizing their milestones as best we can, and we're supporting activities that promote morale. I'm gonna always look into things that we can do to help support morale with our department and our city. Employee engagement, we still have our gatherings, our potlucks. And then we do have employee appreciation day, what we try to find little ways to support and acknowledge our employees during that day. We're still looking to go to job fairs at least 2 per year so that we can, put MC out there, let them know we are hiring and that it is a great place to work. And then we want to improve our HR processes to support organizational efficiency and compliance. So this is expanding also. Like I said, we've looked at ISOL, HR Bamboo, and HiBob, and they do help with our paperless part. But sometimes they want you to buy into their payroll part. And I don't need the payroll, I just need documentation part. So just finding a company that helps us with what exactly we need and not offer more than what we need is the challenge right now.
If I could just add, in terms of the, employee handbook, we are engaged with ABCell and Attorney Parker to take that on, so that'll be an ongoing project.
Questions for Rachel?
You mentioned DSNA, please, what is DSNA?
Yes.
DSNA, I know what that. And in terms of the onboarding, that's just the documentation for getting people into the system.
So right now we use DocuSign. So once they're hired, we send their offer letter through DocuSign, they sign it electronically. We send all the new hire documents ahead of time that they're gonna view and sign ahead of time. Once it's signed, you then have to print it from DSNA, print it from DocuSign and upload it to DSNA. We're looking for an onboarding platform where we can submit the position, they can apply for the position. You can do all the new hire documents, all the onboarding documents through that same platform. Once everything has been completed, it automatically uploads into DSNA without all that printing or scanning and downloading and then putting it into the system.
Like the seamless integration. Yeah.
Okay, I was just thinking about the DocuSign thing because, if you can do forms in that, but it doesn't, it doesn't make sense to have that as a separate system. I'm all DocuSign, so. In terms of policy for, we have a closed session that has HR ramifications in that, so the handbook is part of that, but never mind, I don't even know what the question is about that.
Yeah, so in terms of that vendor or program that can house the onboarding and then seamlessly, is there like any leads as to what programming you use for that, or what's the session?
I saw, or either Neogo, but they're just high, and so we can't, factor that cost in right now. But they do integrate with
Yeah, I'm wondering, I know that, I think this may have come up last year about how outreach happens for our city positions. And I'm just wondering if there's any plans to work with like our communications department to do more of like getting outreach for our city positions, maybe in social media as well, or just other avenues for it.
So they started, once we put posting out there, first it's internal, so it's again kind of like flyer. But JD is very good at putting it in our CIM, and then the information that goes out to the public has been posted on Instagram, I believe, for our last couple of positions, so we are working on getting that out there.
No question. Thank you. I could do drummer
Oh,
together.
Okay.
It's cold, I know, that's, yeah, I'm not shivering. I'm sure you're fine. I know you are. I'm shivering up here.
Next up is Chief of Police.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. So, the core areas that we want to focus on, our goal is, staffing capacity, training and development, public infrastructure, and communication. So for the staffing capacity, we're allotted for, 33 officers. Currently, we have 23, so the goal was to hire, 10 officers, this year, which would bring us to being fully staffed. We actually have 5 people starting Monday, so half of those vacancies are pretty much already gone. So we'll have, as of Monday, 5 vacancies. Of course, once they're hired, the efforts will be to, increase retention with the officers that we hire. And we are actively interviewing candidates for the April Academy, which will start. We have 5 or 6 individuals who are interested in attending. As far as training and development, we want to do, this is more of an expanded goal. We want to conduct mental health training. We conducted department-wide mental health training last year, but we're going to make efforts to do it on a yearly basis. And this year, we will make attempts to do it with community stakeholders who have direct knowledge of some of the populations that we deal with. So we're looking at doing something with CMH or Corner Health. Also, this year, we're finding, or we're gonna identify one de-escalation instructor. Being that it's a mandatory training for all officers this year in the state of Michigan, that de-escalation training has to be a part of your training. So we have one officer that's already attended the training, and we'll have another that completes it by the end of this month. So we can conduct that training internally. Public infrastructure, again, we're just finishing up trying to modernize the building. We've been removing carpet from the walls, kind of ongoing, but I think that project is about done. I have under there installing external surveillance cameras. There are certain security requirements for a police department, not having reliable external cameras can cause issues just with in our station. We obviously house firearms and different things. We should be able to just monitor at least the exterior of the building. And under communication, again, I think we've made significant progress in this area, but again, just working with the communication department to streamline dissemination of information, especially around critical incidents and releasing information that we can. And one thing I forgot under training, we also are identifying 3 people to go to ALICE training, which we would provide that service to city departments in terms of steps you can take during a critical incident that may happen at the workplace or whatnot. So we will have 3 officers trained in that by March of this year. ALICE. It stands for Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, and Evacuate. It's a training that provides the workplace for situations such as workplace violence, unfortunately active shooters, those types of situations. Yeah, we would provide that to very different departments, and I've actually been asked about doing it to different businesses in the city, providing that training.
All right, questions for Chief Anderson?
Yeah, one question, as you're talking about these different like training development goals, so when thinking about things like de-escalation, which has come up, I'm interested to know like what kind of things are entailed in that. And like, who are you, like, who are the kind of groups of folks that are doing trainings like that for police departments and the same for mental health?
Yes, ma'am. So, so for the de-escalation, we went through a company that's called, it's through the Police Executive Research Forum. It's like a national training. It meets all best practices standards. And the training is, the acronym is ICAT. It stands for Integrating Communications and Tactics. And it's really scenario based. They run the officers through a lot of different scenarios and they teach, you know, just basically different de-escalation tactics to try to bring a situation under control. So that's the de-escalation training we used. And last year we used DWIN, Detroit Wayne Mental Health Authority. They provided our mental health training. And like I said, this year we're going to look more local in conducting that training.
Yeah, just for now.
Yeah.
Every time.
No, I just wanted to follow up on that in terms of the de-escalation training, the point was made. Different definitions of de-escalation, so, coming from a law enforcement perspective versus coming from a mental health perspective, and how that gets, either having multiple sources of information is helpful. Just going to that. Back up to staff in terms of, you've got 5 new hires, that brings you up to 28. How many, you know, there's been a lot of recruitment through the academy. And so we're winding up, we've talked about this, you know, like, yeah, young staff or lots of new hires. We talked about lateral positions, things like that. So how many more experienced officers, what's the average you know, years in service?
I would say now the average years is probably 3 years in the department. We do have some lateral officers that came from other agencies that have significant experience. One of the individuals that start next week has roughly a year and a half at another agency. So I mean, he's still a young officer. But I would say most officers in the department, our average now is about 3 years.
And so in terms of lieutenants, I mean, I don't know how many people have at different levels. Can you break that down?
So I would say we have vacancies at the command level, but the only way to actually run a promotional process is we have to get people in the building, and there's some contractual limitations as to when we can actually allow those persons to promote. So we're hoping this year we have plans to run a sergeant's exam where we have a small amount of people who can actually participate in that process. So we are running the sergeant's exam, but I would say there's easily 2 sergeant's positions that are vacant and 2 lieutenant.
So in terms of I guess part of the questioning is like how do we get experienced officers? How do we recruit more experienced officers so that there's more leadership? I mean, you know, like it's a young department, relatively inexperienced, mentorships with older officers, you know, and average age too, life experience comes into this as well. And so if we have a very young, very inexperienced force, then you know, it's kind of perform like that, right? So how do we get I guess the question doesn't have to answer here, but it's just like, how do we get more experience? So I know the part of the answer is money, but
That was, you know, I would second that, you know.
yeah, so you know
the challenges.
You know, what isn't that are there opportunities for making those connections even outside of our department and partnerships with other community organizations as well, you know, and with the de-escalation in terms of having those opportunities for the new officers to see, other perspectives, not just law enforcement from other law enforcement agencies, but from other community organizations, care-based safety, things like that. We keep hitting this, kind of dead end with the county, we've got 2 crews that have been funded that we realized, I realized anyway, that the dedication of those, one of those was for the township specifically. And so I was under the impression that the first one was for the entire county, and that we provided the funding for a crew specifically for Ypsilanti. We don't have that, and it turns out the one that we do have is shared with everybody else, whereas the township has their own. And so it's like, short of expanding that, which hasn't happened in the last several years. How do we, I guess I'm encouraging to think of other ways that have that kind of response through the organizations that we already have, because getting funding and getting the administration from the county to then bring that back to us hasn't been effective. So
You're referring to like the car where you have the officer and mental health professional. Yeah, we've been invited to participate in that. Is that staffing concerns, and that you have to, I think the way the agreement works is that you have to agree that you're releasing that car. They have to be able to service the county. So if we did that, we're taking resources away from us here to allocate them somewhere else, and we may not have that also. So we're small. They have sent information to participate in that, but you have to basically, your officer, I believe, is available to the county.
I guess I'm also thinking about, maybe it's simpler than that. Ride-along opportunities for people from care-based safety and other organizations, so that there's a personal connection with the officers, and the social workers that are on the ground every day. So it's been talked about several times. So I'm just trying to think about if there would be a budgetary item that would be attached to that, in terms of, if those people are in city vehicles on a regular basis, is there something that needs to happen to make that, is there any training that they need to have? Is there any that would impact the budget? And so, since I'm bringing it up here, I don't expect an answer right away, but I was just encouraging that different ways of incorporating officers with services that are available.
Yes, I remember in past conversations about staffing, especially in the concern to bringing in new officers, about the outfitting the officers and like wanting to step away from the specialized, have to embroider everything, like getting more. I remember you talking about that, the easier way to outfit the officers instead of having to pay that premium. Has that been figured out?
Yeah, everything unfortunately now is pretty much ordered, but we do buy. I say wholesale. We buy more of a different gear. It's like nylon gear, which is cheaper and it's a little more easy to reuse, versus in the past it was leather gear, which is just more expensive and harder to come about. So yeah, but pretty much everything now with it's called a Class B is what the norm is, and that's what the contract says we provide. And contractually, they buy their own Class A, which is the older.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, so one question I had was about the investigative bureau, like how much staff is there and what's going on with that?
So we have one person in the detective bureau now, and we're in the interviewing process to put a second person. So in the next month, there'll be 2 people in the detective.
Okay. And I'm just putting out a note. Similar question as to the police or to the fire chief. So, looking at the goals, I can see some response to kind of the situation that happened. You mentioned the CMH crisis team, and I'm happy to hear that. Kind of looking at more integration there. And so I'm wondering if you have a response about, how you would review policy with regard to calling other jurisdictions like the sheriff, SWAT, as opposed to CMH crisis team as a first call.
Well, we have a policy that governs exactly what we do and how we do it. So I think we have to review some of the mutual aid agreements and when mutual aid is actually activated and for what purposes and who can come in and when that mutual aid is activated. So if we call Washtenaw County, that's us calling them. The other entities that may arrive, that's something that we have to review. But we do have a policy already in place for these types of situations.
Okay, yeah, so it sounds like maybe reviewing that might be a priority, and it would be great for that to come before council as well. I mean, I guess the other note about that is, because you're increasing staffing capacity and all this, if we're doing that, or prioritizing that, then I also want us to prioritize getting more independence from other enforcement agencies like sheriff and SWAT. As we don't want to collaborate with ICE, which is an enforcement agency, we want to also reduce our reliance on jurisdictions in which we have no oversight over or no sway over like how we want to be policed. We have sway over how we want to be policed by our own local PD, so that's where we should prioritize our efforts. And then I guess the last concern too is, we talk about training and, a lot of people have actually brought up about like, some of the training should be just the local PD knowing about the local resources for homelessness, for substance use, for mental health, crises that are happening, just so that officers can actually connect people on the ground with resources they need, or at least being able to be connected with the kind of the local social service provisions in the area, so you can at least, refer by phone number or whatever. So, that should be part of training.
Agreed. We've done that in the past. We've had community mental health come in. We're gonna redo that again. We're gonna just update all the houses, make sure they know the resource. We've had the homeless association, they've come in, and the shelter association, and they've come in and educated the officers. We're gonna refresh all those things this year, just to make sure, especially with the younger, make sure they're aware.
Sounds good. And I guess just, I don't know if it was brought up during public comment, the lack of having the fire chief and the police chief talking about the issue. I don't know if you would like to respond about how you would do things differently or at all.
Not really. I think there's an opportunity to improve on the process, but people have said I didn't speak to the media. I actually did speak to me. I actually went to the scene. I spoke that morning. I can't control what the media chooses to put on.
I meant at the meeting on Tuesday.
What would I change about the meeting?
No, sorry, during public comment, somebody brought up that there was a lack of statement at the big meeting on Tuesday from the fire chief and the police chief, and just wondering if you have, statement to the public as to whether you would do something differently or not.
Again, I don't really think this is appropriate time to say whether we do something different. I think that incident gave us an opportunity to review some of these policies, and I do think some things could have been done better. And I think it's an opportunity for us to really reflect and look and take a little more autonomy in how we deploy resources and how we call in additional resources to assist us. Again, we're a small agency. We have to be careful saying we don't want any mutual aid, but I think we need more autonomy and more say-so, and better streamlined communication from those organizations that's working with us to understand exactly who's coming in and what their action is going to be what they're going to do and to consult us before those actions take place. Rather than just telling us afterwards that, hey, this has occurred. That makes sense.
Thank you.
Anything further for Chief Anderson? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our final presentation for the evening is public.
Dun, dun, dun. This was.
I know, I was like, okay, what's going on?
Get a cup to match the sweatshirt.
Fine.
She is committed.
Three layers on, so I feel like.
Okay,
There you
good.
go.
Good evening. No, my presentation, I'm just here if you have any questions.
Let me read.
You were serious?
I can be.
Nah,
It's 10 to 9, 10 to 10.
I know.
9. I'm not used to being here this early. So the vast majority of our goals are continuation of things that we've been working on. So to continue to improve our workforce, we are going to be working with CPOAM on the upcoming contract negotiations. We're continuing to review our staffing structure. We don't have a lot of, we've got negative capacity. We are like beyond capacity right now, as far as like workload to people. So we need more people in order to do the work. Fortunately, we have enough people on the ground doing the everyday work, the operations and maintenance. What we need are more people to help move forward the projects that council requested of us. So there's like just the project management for the EV chargers, for the tree inventory, for a lot of these infrastructure projects. I can't do it all. I'm pretty good, but there are only so many hours in the day. We also have 4 retirements coming up in this calendar year. What we like to do this year that is a little bit different from what we've done in the past is hire the replacements before the people in the positions leave. So it's revolutionary. So
Proactive, that's wild.
So any questions on that operational efficiency, staffing capacity, training and development?
I do have a question. One of the things I wanted to ask you as we are, I think last year we got lucky. It wasn't really winter, or it was like a different kind of.
It's a very
different kind of winter. This is a snowy winter. This is all the precipitation of all the winter. And so, I'm just wondering, like, how we've seen in terms of some of these things, how that has impacted service around things like, filing. I'll just say that I feel like I've noticed a difference. So I don't know.
So there's a lot that goes into the timing of storms. There's also a lot that goes to who comes out on overtime, right? So all of our overtime currently in the DPW is voluntary. So we have had for the last couple of storms, the same 3 to 4 people coming out and doing the overtime work. And that leads to a massive amount of burnout. We also have a lot of people out at medical leave right now. Or on light duty, extended light duty because of medical issues. And that has severely impacted our ability to perform to the standard that we would like. A lot of these storms have come out on holidays. A lot of them have come out in that really awkward time around 3 and 4 in the morning where you call somebody to pull them in early. Are you really actually pulling anybody in early? Because it takes an hour for people to come in and then an hour to get everything put up and started up. So between all of that, we're trying to find ways to complete the really safety crucial work without compromising the safety of having overtired drivers in Class 8 trucks.
And I know this goes into the infrastructure piece, but then also in terms of How, I mean, obviously some of the work on the different buildings has happened, but how is snow impacting some of the?
Well, we can't do any outdoor work really. And then if we have people on overtime doing work, on snow removal, we don't have people on overtime doing work at the police department to upgrade their living environment, their working environment. We don't have people who are perhaps doing overtime here, cleaning out the basement. Cleaning out the basement, gosh, this past year was pretty tough. We did, I want to say, probably about 40 yards of trash and just stuff that people had put into the basement just in case. Took a fair amount to the scrapyard, took a fair amount to like batteries and stuff to electronics recycling. And these are hard things. They're not part of our regular operations and maintenance. They're extra things that we take extra time to do.
And then I was, that's helpful too, but I was talking about the yard.
That is really hard too, because right now all of our trucks are outside in the cold. And that means we cannot store the salt in the trucks. We have to reload the trucks every time. All of the trucks have to be plugged in. When it is as cold as it is coming up this weekend, we're worried about the fuel gelling. I mean, we already have the diesel fuel additives in place, but it's bitterly cold. And when it does get that cold, everything is more prone to break. So what you may or may not have seen around town is not only do we have our 6 plow trucks out and about, but we've also put front plows on some of our one tons. And that's not something we generally do, but with the combination of very cold weather and heavy snow coming up, we're not sure which of our trucks are actually going to be launched. It's harder to keep the trucks clean. Getting salt off of metal is pretty important. Being able to park trucks on something other than gravel would be fantastic because they need to match hydraulic leaks where it becomes a very pressing concern. Or other leaks because there's quite a few fluids on these trucks. So maintenance becomes more difficult. Simply operating them becomes more difficult. Everything takes longer because trucks have to warm up. Really, because of all the various systems, you don't want to go out with full hydraulics. It takes longer to change the blades on the trucks because there's basically a wearing blade on the body plow. You have to melt the ice off of that as you do that. It's just, and you can only service one truck right now. So we really have to prioritize the work that we do. Questions for Donnie? Under the next section of goals. So for public infrastructure and risk and asset management goals, we are continuing with the citywide facility condition assessment process. So that process is wrapping up. We've completed the facility assessment portion of it. All of the buildings have significant issues, including this one, which surprises nobody, but the depth and extent of some of these issues weren't previously known to us. We are wrapping up the second part of that facility condition assessment. The consultants have completed their interviews with the various department heads to assess what sort of future needs there may be, what sort of staffing changes we anticipate. Do we need more people? Do we need fewer people? Do we need more storage? Do we need less storage? Things like that. Now, I also want to point out that this is only for the city hall, police and fire. This doesn't include DPW for that. DPW, we've had our condition assessment. We have the results of it. Not good. We are meeting with a realtor tomorrow to kick that relationship off. But we anticipate that the analysis of the existing buildings versus our current and future needs, they are fairly overlapping circles. The Venn diagram of what's out there. It's a terrible use of a chart, but
the clerk has been, but after the effort of getting rid of, 40 odd yards of trash in the basement, we are working with the clerk's department to ensure that, what we know, what files we have down there. We know what the retention of them is, and we know to whom they belong. So are they a DPW file? Are they a clerk file? Are they something that should really be at the Historic Society? Do we need to hang on to it forever? We've taken stuff over to the cemetery. Actually, we've done some burial records. We found fuel oil tanks in the basement. Yeah, and that was fun.
Can we use them?
No, no, we cannot. A little extra. Yeah, so that's been an exciting journey. I think the first day we had one of the rooms cleared out, we found 2 leaks that we hadn't been able to see until we knew one. So this is an important process. I know it sounds like, oh, you're cleaning the basement. Oh, that's nothing, but it is important. We get to see the foundation. We get to see these fuel oil tanks. We get to see these leaks and then hopefully address them. So that's been a fun experience. We are continuing to work to improve and relocate the DPW yard and the storage. So we have been working with Summit to to stabilize the salt barn that was complete. Then a salt delivery truck, not one of our trucks, tried to take out a couple of the roof trusses the other day. Those have been repaired, but that was an exciting day. We've had the demo complete for quite some time. We actually put those trusses that everybody loved up for auction in this latest round of auction. Nobody bid on them, so we're probably going to be using them as dunnage. Let's see. Programming study is pretty complete, so we know what we're looking for, more or less. There are some issues, of course, with half of our site that needs roofs, not having roofs. That's been tricky to finish out. We've been working with the building department on some wiring challenges that we've had. One of the more interesting things is the way that the main building was wired before. The way it got power was removed during the demolition, and that's the patch bay. And this is the time of year with all the freeze thaw that we really packed out. However, the patch bay is no longer heated and no longer has a garage door opener. So patch gets very congealed when it is cold. So that has been a challenge in just getting patch out to the rooms. Let's see. We are continuing to work to develop a full asset inventory and a preventative maintenance plan. So we've been working with OHM and Epic on a stormwater inventory. They are wrapping that up. So that is a value of about $300,000 or so to us that Epic has been able to find grants for. OHM's been performing the work. So we have a digital inventory of most of our stormwater assets, which is fun and important when sinkholes happen, or we find illicit discharges, or we need to perform the same sort of work in an area over and over again. We are working to inventory our street signs so that we can keep better track of what we've replaced and when, what is out, where it is, when we need to replace things, what's been superseded by different versions of signage, fun stuff like that. And of course, the trees are an asset, and we are working on a grant. We have received the grant. The next meeting will be seeing the award for the inventory and potentially also the asset management software. We're looking at developing a 5-year plan for right-of-way maintenances that includes signals, bridges, signage, pavement, stormwater. So we've been talking about pieces of this with the crack ceiling contract, with the inventories, with all of the work we've been doing on our bridges lately. A lot of our signals are actually all of them need replaced for various reasons, just because the controller technology has evolved. So working on a 5-year plan to do that in conjunction with the TAMP and in conjunction with other things that are in right of way. So that would include the stormwater, and this would be at a very high level. Whatever you're trying to place or TV or is that new.
And of course, we're working to continue to improve compliance with dam safety, stormwater, compost, and various other regulatory standards. That's everything from OSHA to federal compliance. So, any questions about public infrastructure? Progress. Oh.
Yeah, one of the things, oh, we're gonna be hard for me. Please. Yeah, so I guess one of the things, I mean, you were just talking about the, no, that was, it was the, yeah, whatever, the congealing thing.
Patch.
Yeah. But, and so I guess I was just wondering, as this came up a lot, just, thinking about how it fits in terms of, I think in a couple of our goals, we talked about, thinking about like, ways to how the roads are identified, what is being fixed. You know, I know we had that, the consent agenda had the extending the contract, and I was like, well, what roads are they looking at first? Like, I don't know.
We're basically just going around the city in a complex fashion. And all,
Just like, very spot, fill a spot. Okay, so bad.
yeah,
It's like a hide and go seek.
right. Are you familiar with what crack sealing is?
Well, you have explained this to me before, but you can
Doesn't
explain
mean
it.
if I explain it at 10 o'clock at night, I don't expect anybody to. So basically, everybody's seen cracks in pavement. What crack sealing is, they blow those out with compressed air. You see them with weed whips sometimes, getting the grass and the weeds out of that and blowing it with the compressed air. And then they put basically just hot tar, so the binder that you often see in asphalt mixes, and just put that into the crack. And what that does is it keeps water from getting in there and keeps that crack expanding and getting into the subgrade layers, which then causes more and more potholes and more issues. So it's a preventative maintenance thing. You really should start doing it as soon as the road's hit about 3 years old. So that's when cracks start developing, even in a healthy road. And so this is something that the city had not done for maybe 10 years. So every road has cracks. Every road has tons of cracks. We could do it worse first, but then that decreases the efficiency because they'd be going here and here and here and
Yeah,
here.
something different.
Yeah, so we
We need one to crack sealing.
just absolutely. So the next thing would be looking at would be, so the first phase is crack sealing, next phase would be, I'm gonna call it seal coating, but basically just applying a layer of, there's like 7 different places or something, but would we be doing cave seal or fog seal on that top layer? And that, gives back some elasticity to the asphalt, because one of the benefits of asphalt is that it can move a little bit. So with the freeze, it will move before it breaks, and, that in a perfect world would be done on a 3 to 5 year cycle. And so we would start in a similar fashion. So we do a section of crack sealing, then follow it up fairly shortly with the fog seal. And then with the fog seal for most of our roads, for some of our roads, we would have to go back through and do striping, right? So put in stop bars, put in the crosswalks. And so what we've been looking at with the striping plan also is really prioritizing what roads actually are required to have striping. Because striping gets very expensive very quickly. There's lots of different types of striping that is out there. There's everything from the rattle can spray paint, which is what we tend to use internally. And what we have done on a couple of the roads out here, just to get us kind of through the next spot. To essentially tape recess pavement part. So they grind a little bit down, they take a little bit off the pavement, and then they recess that tape so that it doesn't get worn off. You'll see that on Chinatown roads. And none of our roads really need that recessed pavement markings, but we do want something that is durable and that is reflective. So it would likely be a tape. And of course, with all of this construction stuff, there's a window in which all of this can be applied, the summer months, basically. So we've done some striping this fall. We're working out some kinks in that process, but we do have the bones of the plan for the next 5 years. And so, as you guys know, our roads, at the budget level are separated into 2 categories. There are major roads in Fund 202, and then there are local roads in Fund 202. Our local roads tend to be more lightly traveled, and those will tend to not need lane markers, but they tend to need the stop bars. So we're looking at, well, do we want to say, as a rule, we only use this type of pavement marking on the local roads, but on the major roads, and so we're going to be fine tuning that also based on traffic counts and as well.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, it's obviously a lot, and I know that there's, you know, there's the timing of when projects and trying to think, oh, it's gonna be torn up for this thing, how do, you know, all these different things, and, but I just was, I think, just meaning that I think, yeah, like roads and things would probably be good to have pulled out.
Yeah, so I anticipate bringing to you probably in the next 2 months. I've gone back and forth with the consultants that are working on this a few times. The transportation asset management plan, it addresses most of this at a higher level. I'm trying to get more information into it and more in a user friendly way, because as it stands, it is the type of plan that goes on a shelf and nobody reads it. I think you guys have seen a draft, you guys have seen a draft already, and I think you enjoyed it deeply at on an intellectual level, but I don't think that you guys would necessarily reach for it again. So I'm trying to make a lot of the graphs, well, more graphs, more tables, more maps, graphs, and to make it clear and useful for whomever comes after me and whomever comes after you. Of course, it's forgotten. But so many things. I'll keep saying.
Councilmember Fellow.
Yeah, I got a list. I guess curious to the commercial realtor in.
A graph of saddles, is that it? Yeah, saddles. Thank you.
Travels. Graph.
McGrath.
Okay. And then one of the things I'm interested in is like because there's a couple mentions of planning, you know, 5-year integration plan and stuff like that. So is to have like some more MDOT coordination for the trunk lines, and so if we can have any influence on like trunk line design plan. You know, Michigan Avenue comes to mind where we didn't get to change, you know, the width of our roads or add a bike lane or anything, and so I'm wondering if we have anything in place, what is that, and if that could be also integrated as planning for trunk lines.
So we do work fairly well with MDOT. One of the things is that everything takes a very long time when you're talking about the scale of change that is needed to change the width of the road and to impact as many businesses as that would be done. So, the bike lane project on the Hamilton and Huron and Washtenaw took 11 years. I don't think that changing the flow of traffic on Michigan Avenue downtown would take substantially less. Part of that is because of our funding constraints. If we had enough money to throw at the project to make it happen, sure, we could make it happen. In a much shorter time period, but with how road funding works, MDOT is allotted a giant pool of money per year, just like anybody else. And they will prioritize their worst roads first. So MDOT or Michigan Avenue is in fairly good condition now. It's not dangerous. And the reasons we want it redone is it's safety, but a lot of it in the context of the freeways and in the context of the trunk lines, it's a little bit more quality of life-ish. And so in order to move that forward on their timetable, we would have to bring more money to the table. So if
I
they're
should
willing
clarify,
to fund things.
I definitely don't mean Michigan Avenue, that just got done. I meant more like what, if we could also do 5, 10, 15, 25 year integration plans. For the trunk line specifically, as in the E-course and Michigan Avenue connection, next time that needs to be changed.
Yeah,
And-
I think it's beyond the 10-year horizon, but I think the city manager, Helena, has been working with the township on their visioning process for that.
Cool, yeah, or do you have anything to say about it?
No, they wanna create a corridor TIF. They have, since the majority of that is, in their jurisdiction, they have current zoning changes that puts the parking lots near the back, creating like a slower, more friendly area. They want to do a road diet to slow things down. So they have a lot of plans for that to make it more of a like a business district and kind of slow everything down.
Yeah, and I guess in connection to that, just that, that Michigan Avenue E-course trunk line connection is in the city, and so. I guess what I'm trying to say is like, it would be great to have some planning around what does the city want the next time this comes up for MDOT to change? So that we have influence on.
They know what we want.
And that's also, we have such a small portion of that, and we'd have to do it in concert with the township regardless.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay, well, I'd like to see the plan then, I just haven't.
So there's no plan, right? So in order to actually put pencil to paper, you have to have money. So you have to have a study, you have to do that sort of thing. So the conversations that we've had with MDOT about that is we know it's not on the immediate horizon. They know that we'll support a road diet on the E-course section. The traffic counts there are low. I want to say it's between 10 and 15,000 vehicles a day, and a 5-lane road is not needed for that sort of count. They know that we want to, in general, make Ypsilanti more pedestrian friendly, more walkable, more bikeable. So generally speaking, they tell us when these things come up in the LRP. That is also why we participate in WATS on the technical committee and go to all of the meetings, because that way we know when something is coming down pipeline. And we have those relationships with the planners, so.
Okay, I guess just with related to the budget then and funding, that it would be good to set aside money for. To put towards it, so we actually like guarantee that we can. Move it forward, and I guess similar to that, it's like the 5-year integration plan for right-of-way maintenance. Just also want to encourage a 5-year integration plan for bike lane connections.
So that wouldn't necessarily be a maintenance, that would be more of a capital and more of an improvement and a gap fill. So this is just how we take care of our roads, and I'm sorry, this is probably coming off like arguing with you, and I'm not trying to do that, I'm just trying to sort of mentally separate them. Improvements are kind of in a different bucket as far as spending and staffing and project management. And so that is a different sort of plan and a different sort of approach, but still doable.
Yeah, I'm just requesting that, and then. I brought up the Waterworks Bridge, and I guess I just forgot to say is that it feels super dangerous to walk on.
Oh, it's not as dangerous, except for the trip fall sort of
Okay.
stuff, but.
Did it get bolted down or something?
So there's angle iron that keeps the boards in place, and as long as the boards. If one of the boards actually went missing, it would become quite a bit more dangerous, but the boards are not in danger of breaking, at least the last time I visited. It's mainly the trip fall aspect of it because they are so warped.
Yeah, well, last time I walked on it, I don't know if something's changed since then. It was about, I don't know, 4 weeks ago. It was it's not that the boards are gonna fall through, but they're moving and the trip balls are really intense, and then it has snow and ice over it, so it seemed kind of like impossible to cross.
Yes.
So yeah, the bridge is coming to mind, and then the Dos Hermanos area that's getting smashed by cars. is another area where I'm wondering if there's a budget plans set aside for that.
So there's not really a budget item because it's about a $20,000 problem, at least for the first sort of things that we're gonna throw at it. So we talked to OHM and we talked to a couple of other jurisdictions, and what we're gonna do, likely in the next construction season, is add a few breakaway bollards to the median island. We're gonna improve the signage indicating that there's a curve there. But in analyzing most of the crash reports, the issue there is not the design of the road, it is the intoxication of the drivers. Intoxication or distraction of the drivers, and that is a problem that design cannot solve. So it would mainly be defensive, which is hence the bollards, to catch the vehicles before they do damage to things other than the vehicles.
I mean, perhaps dieting, or, you know, sometimes roads are kind of like dieted and then moved here and there to kind of just to, before that big, you know, intersection change happens. So there's slowing that happens before they even get there.
Yeah, that's an interesting road because it actually widens out right before it gets there. So that wasn't included in the road diet that was done back in 2011 or 12 or whatever it was. In order to do a study of that area to see if that could be realigned, if we could maybe do a change to the signal, or even explore a roundabout or otherwise improve the safety at that intersection. That's probably a $75,000 to $100,000 study.
Okay, thank you.
When you're talking about bollards. Define a bollard. Bollards is made of the little flimsy things. I'm thinking.
Oh, no.
I'm
bollards
thinking
can
the
also
big
be-
concrete or the water filled plastic guys that.
Yep, so bollards are all of those things and more.
Oh,
So specifically what we were looking at for this is, you know, the up along Eastern's campus, so along Cross and along College Place, the black chess pawn looking guys, something in that similar style. So all of those are actually designed to break away. So one of the fun things about road design is that these things are designed to take the impact and diffuse it, not to be a brick wall that people run into. So they're meant to be non-lethal for the things that run into them. So kind of like on a freeway, on the off ramps or the on ramps, you'll see those water filled barrels. So it's meant to absorb the impact. It is not meant to.
Be a brick wall.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, back turn to the.
That was just.
Like a little ranch.
Do that with some of the stormwater there, the pavement changes. Stuff.
I guess in terms of, you know, the meeting with the realtor, right? They were talking to them, different, opportunities within the city, and of course, if we wind up going outside of the city, we run the problem. Taking property off tax rolls for another, that's sort of the problem. Are there short-term solutions for a roof at the current site? I'm thinking EMU bubble. That's a positive pressure, soft roof. That possibly.
So we looked at some options for a temporary roof or something along that lines when we did the designs for, when we went out to bid for the demolition. Because of the intensity and spacing of those concrete walls, it doesn't get as much to stick another roof on top of it. We would still have to rewire everything to put lights in there. It doesn't, we would have to condition the space, which means that in order to have a functional space, which means we have to add HVAC, we'd have to add lighting. We're basically not saving any money. We're building another roof. And then once we throw that much money at it, then we are likely, politically speaking, with the fallacy of sunk costs, going to be stuck with that building for quite some time.
Yeah.
And also if we want to remove those concrete walls, that gets us into remediation. So what we're doing at this particular instant is we're bringing in a couple more storage containers to help us. We have everything in the back red barn, the one that shouldn't be there in the first place. And it is absolutely a mess. So in order to clean that up a bit, we're getting 2 to 3 storage cargo containers. And 2 of them are gonna stay on site at 14 West Forest, another one is gonna go on our off-site storage yard down on the road, so.
Okay.
More money?
And our communication skills too.
Oh, you didn't do those yet? Oh my God.
Not even 10.
I'm sorry.
Come on, guys.
Yeah.
No, my love. I have a PowerPoint after this.
Motion to.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
we will. You're too close.
As parliamentarian, how do I?
You're too.
So
No, I got it.
communication goals should go pretty quickly.
Yeah,
If we-
so you'll see that the mailer has not yet gone out this year. That is due to staffing crunches. We're probably gonna do a limited print run and stick it in the lobby here of the mail that we had last year that was, everybody liked.
Very nice.
Yeah.
That's very nice.
Very nice.
We'd like to do it next year, and so we're gonna be working more with the communications staff so that they can take on that lift. And then spread the budget around outside of my department too. We still take up most of the real estate because we're so cool and important. But we're happy to share the costs. And we're continuing to work with communications on education and outreach. So you'll have seen a few different snips on the social media videos where Katie has gone around with my guys. And we hope to do more of those.
I've been waiting for this one. I have 13 questions.
Okay.
Get it.
No?
What questions do you all have? I'm just saying. He said it was gonna go really fast, so I have questions, anything? All right, thank you. Mike.
Oh, everybody.
Okay, good job, everybody. So just wrapping this up in conclusion, if the council members could all complete their prioritization packets, I'll collect those. I'll also make sure I work with Andrew, City Manager Belinda to get council member claims ratings as well. What have we done? Well, we've had some great conversation. We started at the macro level, working with council on Tuesday, in which you were able to discuss your strategic priorities. We then had an opportunity to work with the directors and consolidate those into their work plans. And this evening, you had an opportunity to kind of dig in and view the micro elements of your strategic plans in action. And so the combination of looking at strategy and talking about the operationalization of that strategy gave you a holistic strategic planning process, which should inform the budget and help city manager manage forward under the council's direction. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this process. Always enjoy working with y'all. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Milner.
Awesome.
Thank you, thank you.
Here's my pen.
Give me a work computer.
All right.
All right.
There, but
We're doing the
You heard us say.
Oh, no. I put things over.
Alien work computer. That's real cool. That's real cool.
Get my gaming in.
There you go.
Maybe we wanna move to go into closed session.
Well,
That's
folks ask
real
to
cool.
finish their.
That's real
their,
cool. That's actually
Trying to
really cool.
Trying to get through this, but. This is our second opportunity. We don't have a second
It
opportunity.
didn't carry over. Yeah, it didn't carry over.
Bye.
See y'all later. All right. When is this supposed to start getting super cold? Oh, beautiful.
Like school, or our school?
No.
No, they're not. I have to work and I have a. And they all have to with you. Yeah. It's fun. Supervisor. Boss. The good news is that she has all her friends always try to get her to play. She might be able to help. Okay.
Oh.
Mayor Pro Tem, can you, we need your.
Oh, no, I caught out. Yeah, I'm exhausted.
Yeah, I already sent it to him.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Let's go.
Resolution number 2026-019. Resolved by the council of the city of Ypsilanti that this council enter a closed session pursuant to MCL 15.268E for the purpose of discussing the following pending litigation, Lori L. Thomas versus the city of Ypsilanti et al. And BTP Riverwoods LLC and BTP Arbor One LLC versus the city of Ypsilanti, and I submit.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem LaCosta, supported by Councilmember Tucson.
Yes.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember Fellows has stepped out. Councilmember Tucson?
Yes.
Councilmember Simmons?
Yeah.
Councilmember Mission? That's it. Councilmember King?
Yeah.
And Pro Tem LaCosta?
Yes.
Stay abreast.
Thank you. All right, we're gonna go into the closed session.
No one here.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great idea. That would be.
You turn the heat up right down here, and y'all wanna stay here? All right, fine.